News Bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
It is Tuesday, the 10th of September, 2024. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. This is news to 6 a.m. on News Power Digital. There is no resolution with Auditor General Jayanti Ramdas on the controversial $2.6 billion 2023 revenue discrepancy impasse. The Auditor General's special report on TNT's public accounts for 2023 only adds more fuel to the fire, creates more unnecessary public confusion, and does not satisfactorily address the core issue, which is government's view has been comprehensively cleared up. Finance Minister Colin Imber noted this regarding Ramdas's special report on the public accounts for the financial year 2023 in a statement in the Parliament yesterday afternoon after presenting the special report. The report involves the core issue of the $2.6 billion discrepancy, which arose when the Auditor General's original report on the 2023 accounts. The Auditor General and Finance Ministry clashed in April over an understatement of $2.6 billion in revenue in the Auditor General's original report. The issue caused tension on both sides, with the ministry launching a probe of the situation and Ramdas taking legal action on other aspects. The Auditor General, Ms. Ramdas, also claimed that the central bank denied her access to the electronic check clearing system, which negatively impacted her ability to perform a proper audit and check of the system, which led to the understatement. In an affidavit dated September 5th, 2024, filed in the constitutional matter against the AG, Ramdas disclosed she posited the information in her special report. Meantime, UNC political leader Cameron Prasad-Bissessar has queried why the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago refused to allow the Auditor General's request to examine the bank's electronic check clearing system. Prasad-Bissessar called for an investigation into the central bank based on the results of the special report of the Auditor General on the public accounts for the financial year 2023. The Trinidad and Tobago Nursing Association claims the lucrative salaries offered abroad is attracting many local nurses. President of the association, Edie Stewart, says there is still room for local nurses to be given a package which is good, especially in light of rising cost of living, crime, shelter, and other factors. Stewart claimed there is still one regional health authority which has revealed it will cost $26 million to employ nurses on a permanent basis, while other RHAs have done so after the association won its court matter on the issue. He claims all nurses are working on 2013 salaries, while doctors are on 2015 wages. Stewart said there are measures which can be taken to retain nurses in this country. 5 opposition MPs say they are unfazed over being put to sit separately from other UNC MPs in the House of Representatives and promised to uphold UNC principles. These were Tabaquite MP Anita Haynes, Napriuma MP Rodney Charles, Mairo MP Rushton Parry, Komoto Manzanilla MP Dr. Rai Ragbi, and Chaguanas West MP Dinesh Rambali. In the September 9th sitting held yesterday, the quintet walked into the chamber at 2:03 p.m., took their seats at the far end of the bench from the whip seat. The 5 were notified of the seating changes earlier that day without any reason being given, presumably a decision from the opposition leadership. Meantime, our Member of Parliament Rushton Parry says he's unsure of his position in the UNC at present, and more specifically, where he stands with the party's leader and the executive. He told the Power Breakfast show yesterday morning he was not invited to an election strategy meeting held by the UNC recently, in which Mayaro was discussed as a seat of note, but did not think it pertinent to invite him as the present MP for Mayaro. He noted the trend began before the internal elections, which he always found to be of great concern. He believes they've created a hostile work environment by their actions. The number of lab-confirmed deaths from dengue fever has moved to 16 in this country. There are 1,315 lab-confirmed cases of dengue fever. The information provided by the Ministry of Health in its latest report. As at September 5th, 2024, a total of 914 yellow fever notices have been issued to property owners and occupiers, directing them to clean up their surroundings. Of this, 43 have been notified and identified for consideration for the institution of legal proceedings for non-compliance. In news of the region, St. Vincent and the Grenadine Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonzalez spoke for the first time recently about the seizure of President Nicolas Maduro's aircraft. St. Vincent is being reported as the alleged place where the company through which the aircraft was purchased was registered. Prime Minister Gonzalez said he's seen various reports that the plane came from Miami and came to St. Vincent and went on to Venezuela. And he's trying to ascertain whether that actually happened. No one in any political directorate controls which plane comes in. That's a matter for the Director of Civil Aviation. Once under the rules, everything that's before him is seen to be appropriate. She will give permission of whether or not they can pass through the island. And finally, tonight's debate between U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris and former U.S. President Donald Trump will provide another defining moment in an eventful and tight presidential campaign. With less than 2 months until election day on November 4th, it's a high-stake night for both candidates, where their words and debate style will be put to the test. And that is news to 6 a.m. right here on News Power Digital. We have major news coming up at 7 a.m. Good morning.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital.
The hour of 6 o'clock on the perfect day. It is the 10th day of the 9th month. Good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us on the Power Breakfast Show on Power 102 Digital. It should be just Paul and myself this morning. So good morning to you, Paul.
Good morning, Steve. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning to you, my friend. Hope all is well with you.
Giving thanks, yes, everything is well.
Always got to do that every single day. 24 degrees at Payarco International Airport, 26 at Crown Point in Tobago. And let's take a look to see if the Met Office has updated their weather forecast for today. They have not, but yesterday they predicted partly cloudy intervals with a few isolated early morning and afternoon showers, 40 to 60% medium of the isolated thunderstorm favoring, but not confined to western and hilly areas. All right. So that's your weather. Traffic-wise, let's see where we got any problems. Couva to Sugargonas, and then volume from Charlieville, Trin City, headed into Port of Spain, got some volume there. Nothing ready to tell you about in San Fernando. Right. Okay. Just setting up here. Right. Did you watch Polaris Dawn launch at 5:23 this morning? You didn't see that?
No.
Yeah. That's the geek in me. I watched it.
What launch is that?
It's a four-member crew that is going up, and they're going to do a spacewalk, and will come back down in 5 days.
I'm afraid they get stick like the last set.
Well, the last set is on the International Space Station. That craft came down when? This weekend, unmanned, with no problems, in New Mexico.
No, didn't 2 astronauts return finally?
No. They're coming back in February on board a SpaceX aircraft, not a Boeing, but a SpaceX. So they're there. They went for an 8-day mission, and they're there till February now.
Steve is up to date.
Yeah, that's the geek in me. That's the geek in me. I was watching it on the launch this morning on YouTube while I was getting ready. So it's quite fascinating to see how those rockets land on the boosters, land on the barge. It's quite amazing. Precise.
I like to see the intricacy with which they dock with the space station.
Yeah.
That is a piece of mathematical marvel.
Yeah, even the launch the boosters back onto Earth on the barges. How they do that?
Maths.
Yeah, it's all maths. It's all
maths.
But when that Boeing craft was docking International Space Station, because they had problems, they manually had to dock. So That'd be real good.
Speaking of math
Where we going?
and addition and subtraction,
Mm-hmm.
there's no resolution with the Auditor General Jayawanti Ramdas on the controversial $2.6 billion revenue discrepancy issue.
Mm-hmm.
A special report was laid yesterday in Parliament by Finance Minister Colin Member, who said that he does not think, or the government does not think, the issue has been comprehensively cleared up. Of course, the government had sought initially to reconcile just over $3 billion. It came down to $2.6 billion, which could be reconciled through substantial supporting documents. I think there's $700 million that still didn't have documents to substantiate its inclusion in the final 2023 report. And of course, the special report
700 million. You know?
Sorry?
You said 700 million.
Well, there we score these numbers like nothing in Trinidad and Tobago.
Like a dollar, like a cent.
It's like no big deal.
Cent, 5 cent, 10 cent dollar.
$100 million US.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The Auditor General also claimed that the central bank denied her access to the electronic check clearing system, which negatively impacted her ability to perform a proper audit and check on the system. The central bank and the Ministry of Finance Division indicated that the change to that new electronic check clearing system was one of the main reasons why there was an understatement of just about $3 billion when the finance minister brought it to the country's attention. Is it late year before, or early last year? So I don't understand why the central bank would not grant the Auditor General permission, because part of the Auditor General's function, as my understanding has been directed, is not only checking the numbers, but checking the systems that provide the numbers. When you're auditing, you check the systems to see systems are in place for accuracy, or if there are gaps. So maybe the central bank should provide a reason as to why they refused the Auditor General
They should.
access. Well, maybe they have a good reason. I can't think of one, but maybe they have a good reason. You know, I don't know. Why would you deny the Auditor General access to the system to see, well, okay, what happened or what didn't happen?
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
Yes, please.
And Mrs. Prasad is calling for the central bank to be investigated because of this refusal of access to the Auditor General.
You think it should be investigated?
I think everybody needs to have common sense.
Nah, common sense, all that common.
You know? I don't know. It's just very iPhone 16 is out. Looks very interesting. They've really upgraded the hardware.
Yeah, I need a new iPhone. I have an iPhone 8.
But I'm doing a little better than you have an 11.
No, okay.
A little bit, not much better. Nothing to shout about, but
yeah,
a little better.
Yeah, I mean, I just do emails and usual stuff. Nothing too fun. And watch YouTube for our lunch. That's it.
So we spoke to Rushton Parry yesterday.
Yeah.
At length. And he indicated he did not know where he stood with the UNC leadership or Mrs. Pasalbi Sessa, because they've not returned correspondences from him for quite a while. Well, both houses of Parliament resumed the fourth session and ended the fourth session yesterday. And Senate sat and the House sat. Well, the Senate sat from 10 a.m. and the House sat from 1:30 p.m. And this is what happened just now. This is what happened. This is the five persons: Anita Haynes, Rushton Parry, Dinesh Rambadi, Dr. Rai Ragbir, and Rodney Charles. You see walking in there. And their seating has been rearranged. You know, sit at the end. They get demoted in seating arrangements. So when I went down to the lunchroom yesterday, I saw everybody, the four of the people. Dr. Ragoobarsingh was talking to someone off the side, but the four of them sitting at the same table. And you know me, Rebecca and Alice Reyes. Hey, me, there's an interesting table.
Oh, Lord.
And everybody started to laugh. This is quite an interesting table. How come you're not upstairs? And they just laughed and looked at me. Everybody was dressed in black.
Yeah. But I saw last evening in the news that is usually, the seating arrangements is done by the chief whip with the request from the
leader of the party.
Leader of the party.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So this kind of substantiates what Rushton Parry told us yesterday, that they have been silent because the seating arrangements tell a big story. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, of where you sit in terms of the hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
So you see them all seated down at the end there. Well, Rodney Charles has already indicated that he's not presented himself for consideration for Napoleon because he know he on the way out.
Yeah.
But the others who formed the group that challenged Mrs. Passably-Sessa's endorsed team at the Natex now have all been put down the rail. What do you think this says? Do you think it means that they need doghouse? No.
They need doghouse for sure. Until it comes to election, then we welcome you with open arms.
Well, I don't think.
Let's put our differences aside.
I don't think they're going to welcome with no open arms. I think this is a clear sign that they will not be chosen to represent people in this. Let me just say, I'll be surprised if they are.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I'll be very surprised if they are, but this speaks volumes as to where they stand with the hierarchy of the party.
Yeah. And he just said last night is where you are with the party. You sit.
So, yep. So I mean, they all five moved, and they were informed just yesterday morning by Chief Whip.
I think they expected that. Yeah.
I don't think they were terribly surprised.
No. I wonder if they're still in the WhatsApp group.
I don't know. Maybe. So we see how things goes. One of the videos that came to me is a very disturbing video.
Which one?
The one where the person was walking out of the house on the phone, went to a car and was shot.
Oh, 7th Street in Barrattari.
Is it Malik?
Barrattari.
So let me warn people before I play this video.
This
is a very graphic video. If you are maybe triggered by it, because it contains extreme violence. I think actually the young man died, not so?
Yes.
If you are triggered by extreme violence, you may want to look away for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, don't look at your screen.
Right? So, I mean, I played it about 3 times and I was just like, wow.
I played it once.
It's clearly, I mean, if you walk out into the street on the phone and go and look into a car, it more than likely somebody you know or were expecting, not so?
Right. Yes, that is what I said.
So
somebody in there.
So he is walking out.
Yeah.
The car is parked there.
You better kill the audio. Kill the audio in that. Yeah. Right. Good. Yeah. So you come on.
So he goes now.
Hey, look, Richard there, man. He with Wendell. Hey, fellas, what's going on?
And then he's shot. I mean, this is astounding to me.
Where did he learn this from, man?
So he clearly, to me, knew who he was to. He was expecting someone.
Yeah, because he's casually walking, huh?
Yeah. And then the person points the gun out.
Top of his head.
And shot in his head. I mean, and then of course falls to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And then the person reaches out and fires another shot.
Mm-hmm.
And they drive away.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, guts. I only watched that once, and that was it. I didn't even follow.
I watched it a couple of times, like in disbelief.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually in disbelief.
It is something that we all do. At some point in our life, we would have done that. We have come outside and
somebody you know on the phone,
you know,
or somebody you're expecting, you know. Because he didn't seem
Or it
particularly
could be.
perturbed walking out. He was very comfortable.
Or it could be. Oh, look, Steve on the phone. Look, Richard and Wendell outside. Go hail them out there for me. They're here to check you. They're here to give you something.
No,
Could
Steve. He was expecting that car or whoever it is. And
Yeah.
because he walked out on the phone and he stopped the conversation and then walked and looked in the window. It's not like,
Mhm.
I don't know. Clearly somebody put him in place, as they say. It's rather unfortunate. And the murders continue. And that's why when the DCP says police are in charge of crime and they're in control, people scoff.
Yeah.
You know?
I saw a vox pop with that same. Do you think the police has a handle on crime?
I mean,
And
they're setting
everybody
up
said no.
themselves for ridicule. When you say things like that, so blatantly and so carte blanche and so absolutely, you're setting up yourself for ridicule.
Yeah.
Because that is not the sentiment of the wider population.
There was another story that I saw where in the San Juan River, there was somebody under the water. And I'm going, oh, I didn't hear anything about that one, but
I don't know.
I don't know. It's just
It's very, very, very disturbing.
we live in a place where I don't think anybody feels 100% safe.
Well, that's an understatement. That is clearly an understatement. And well, let's open the phone lines up.
Yeah.
Do
And we
you
also have some good news. I sent it to you last evening. Let me just pull up the story here. So there you are. And the other one in McEnroy Street in Kirab, some fellas jumped a wall. And where a gentleman, his name is Michael, and he was at Sunflower Beach in Blanchisseuse on Sunday. And he realized that there were a few people struggling in the water.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw that. Anthony Charles and his wife and another person was struggling in the water. Michael risked his own life and went into the choppy waters and saved the wife and other persons. He tried to save Anthony but was unable to. And of course, Michael started crying when he realized that Anthony had drowned. So kudos to Michael to risking his life going into Blanchisseuse water. You always have to respect water. You know,
Blanchisseuse is rough water.
Yeah, and I actually have some friends that went to Mayaro last weekend, the public holiday, it was this Saturday, and they rented a beach house and went and was walking on the beach in the evening, and they actually saw they pulling somebody out of the water. Person was deceased, probably drowned. So always respect water, but kudos to you, Michael. And yes, just trying to give you some good news. I keep looking for good news now.
One of the videos you played yesterday, is it yesterday or Friday, showed the young man, I think it's Friday, from Sealouts who pulled the two people out of the car.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I found out yesterday
Mm-hmm.
how the accident occurred, because the person whom they collided with, the car that Flip collided with, works at the Parliament.
Really?
And I saw her, I shall not name her,
Right.
but I saw her with a neck brace yesterday. I said, what happened to your neck? She said, you would not believe I was involved in the accident by Sealouts where the car flipped. And the car that flipped where the men were pulled out is the car that rammed this woman, and rammed another car and then flipped. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
So while we're happy that they pulled them out of the car, which caught a fire, they are the ones who broke the light in the person's mind, estimation. They broke the light, rammed into her car, and rammed into another car and then flipped, driving indiscriminately.
Yeah.
Now one wonders, because they were pulled out of the car, I'm sure they were quite banged up themselves. if they have been arrested and or charged for reckless driving or dangerous driving.
That's another question.
Because
And
the person I spoke to yesterday said she was so traumatized, she just went into shock, was crying in the car, and cars were passing her, and she was surprised that nobody stopped to help her. And then a woman stopped her car,
including the police vehicle that was there,
and walked across the street and helped her out of the car to the side of the road, and secured her handbag because she was so disheveled and traumatized. She didn't know where anything was at for a while. And then the woman brought her handbag to her and said, look, I secured your handbag because I didn't want to leave it in the car unattended. So commendations to the person who helped her.
Yeah.
But I mean, they actually, she said they're the ones who broke the car, the lights, and rammed into her. So I don't know.
More and more I'm seeing people breaking lights.
Which is crazy. And driving past maxis when they stop.
Yeah. But even, I don't know if you saw the video by Piaco Lights yesterday, where a Junior Sammy truck hit another car by the Piaco Lights, and clearly lights were orange. And
Where's the orange light?
Sorry?
What's an orange light?
Hello, you're getting a red light, you're getting a green light. And so he went from one lane to switch to the other lane. And that's when the Junior Sammy truck came across and hit him sideways. I'm sending it to you.
You said there was an orange light. There are orange lights?
Red, green, orange.
Okay, I only know about red, green, and yellow. I know about the orange light.
Yellow, orange, it depends. I just sent you the videos there. But clearly, it was, they were going to break the lights. I played that one a few times. And more people are breaking, and they drive, taking their time. You see that the light is going to be red. And that is the time that they speed up. So the light is red, and then you go through a light. If the TTPS was to go through those cameras and ticket people for breaking red lights, they can fix all the cars,
Shall we open the phones? 222 talk.
Well, I don't have a screwdriver with me, but we could open the lines. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, gentlemen.
Morning, pal.
Good morning.
This must. Why it is that he is whole and release so easy? Whole is the real issue with this gentleman. Because he have a hand on get released from the court. I don't understand why that is like that. If you had a whole man, wait so that I kind of confused with it because I'm not seeing anything really hope to see, well, do something with him. They just holding him and the lawyers.
It's an embarrassment.
That is really going on with that.
I think you and several other people are confused by that because he has been proffered with one set of charges for sedition and came back. I think there was some investigation of financial crime and they held him and then they released him because clearly they didn't have evidence to charge him. And then they hold him again at the detention center, allegedly for, we haven't had confirmation of some of the authorities, working in the country in contravention of the Immigration Act without a work permit. And then they release him again. And so you have to ask yourself, is this harassment? Is it that you don't want him here because he do what he do and you're going to make it as difficult as possible for him to be here, whether you agree with him or not, whether you like him or not?
It's not. What is he issue? I kind of confused with that. And this time, I mean, why just people openly kick like that and like people don't really care if they have nothing with It's nobody afraid the word. Serious thing.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, caller.
Yeah, the approach to the authorities taking with this. I mean, I ain't no fan of Christmas lists, but I mean, at the end of the day, there's a pattern now of behavior that suggests to some people that they're trying to make it as uncomfortable as possible for him to be here.
Mhm.
So he gets up and leaves and never comes back because somebody don't like what he do. In the videos that he recorded and ran earlier this year,
Mhm.
And bringing to light what some gangsters, quote unquote, are doing and their mindset in Trinidad and Tobago. But I mean, and then the issue of putting him in the detention center, not letting him have access to legal representation is also like, what? I mean, it's just very bizarre. It's bizarre to say the least. It is bizarre and unfortunate. And if the police keep holding him and letting him go, questions are going to be asked as to whether the police service is harassing this man.
Yeah.
And then who knows? He's going to probably turn around and sue the state for embarrassment or whatever the potential lawsuit may be, and make a set of money.
Yeah.
And guess where to pay for it?
Taxpayers.
Exactly. So I mean, you have a legitimate cause for holding him, and charges are proper. That is fine, but your second detention / arrest now, and you just let him go.
Yeah. Morning, Dabity.
Good morning, Steve.
Morning.
Good morning, Dr. Paul.
Good morning, my dear.
Yes, it was last election in Parliament.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's our line because everybody line breaks.
Yeah.
Is it our line?
Ninth.
Let me check quick.
Right. So it was good. But I find it took long. And I remember that everybody come and everybody put aside the differences. The election is over. Everybody's supposed to be like one. So why do we wait till the last school put up a seat? And
they're sending a message, Mr. Abadi.
Yes.
Thou shalt not interfere with the leader.
Well, that exactly. Oh, they knew that was coming. But I say, what happened to do it at the early part of everything finished? That's so terrible. It shows they to do it. Into the next setting now, they will be at that point, that part of the seat again. Oh my goodness. So petty that is, it's how people.
Well, there are implications for that, eh? If you are treated in that way, it means that when bills come to the House and debates happen, as Mr. Parry said yesterday, while usually under the direction of the whip, they could jump up and say what they want, and they could potentially vote how they want. They said they made a statement saying they will uphold UNC principles, but I don't know what that means in the wider scheme of things if this kind of impasse continues.
So yes, so the thing is how politics is such a dirty game, and the other thing is that young man from Barta, he was murdered. Just like what we will do at home, we talking, somebody come together, and we bend down to talk to them, and that was the end of life, just like that. So it has to be somebody who he knows. And I can't say it, but I just say probably the person to get what he got. That means the police have investigation with that phone call he got, put it in place to be killed. Oh my goodness. Please help. He did sell our did sell been working since yesterday, and when we spoke to them, they said that there are a lot of problems, and it is now about 6:30, and I still have no digital thing with people, nothing. Today before 6, and they haven't done anything.
Thank you. Have you figured it out, Steve?
Steve, Please hail out to them and tell them, because not there's a lot of people, my neighbors as well.
Yeah, we have no remit over Digicel. Digicel, like, just do what they want.
Oh God, tell me about it. They did an upgrade for the TV guide and everything. I hate it with a passion. And then somebody told me how to go back to the original TV guide thing. I did that and back to normal. Amen to that. Ugh. Good morning.
Good morning, Steve and Paul.
Good morning.
Seeing Richard there. Morning.
Morning.
Well, it seems as though we have somebody else to pray. That lady who Paul spoke about, who secured the lady back. I want to say praises to her because let me tell you all something. It is not easy when you get an accident. Nobody helps you. I mean, something. I never. It wasn't an accident. I got in. I fell asleep on the highway years ago, in the 90s. It would have been, and a couple of come in a party, and I fell asleep. I almost down in the river, and I fully to avoid going down there. And when I opened my eyes, my car started to lose control, and it was just wanted this car to just hit the railing and stop. And then God, like it just said, turn and my crystal for men's school and stop right there. Just come down. I saw the light coming. This the husband, he spoke. He said, "Hey," he tell me not to drive off now. And it's mind blowing when you to say praises to that lady. Human service there in helping her or in her handbag. So praises her. Good news. And I don't even want to talk about police thing. So it was I saw on the Tobago channel where young guys in Tobago, if you bicycle, listen, it is something. So this is so that I think he has a bicycle shop or repair shop, and you in Tobago repairing and turning these. I saw some design. I say, my God, I don't think sports games on anything with them. So praises, sir. What you're doing, keep doing it. Keep the young people off the streets and doing something positive and not crime. So praises to you, sir. I didn't even get it, but praises to him. Y'all have a blessed day.
Same to you.
Thank you. Morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. Why Mr. Christmas don't stay away from the country? He's trouble he likes. So if you know,
Why should he stay away from the country?
know what I mean? If I am in that situation, I not coming here because if I think somebody just looking to pick on me, I not coming here at all. But probably he himself must be looking like them Venezuelans to get some $50. It had to be a reason why he just leave and end it.
I don't follow your reasoning at all.
No, I wasn't going to come back here at all after the first incident. No, I wasn't coming back.
But he has to come back here. He has a case to answer here, a court matter to answer here. He came back because he was supposed to come back as part of the arrangement with the court, with the bail. So he has to come back. So I don't understand the premise that he shouldn't come back. He should break the arrangement with the court and don't come back.
Apart from coming back for the matter, is the matter finished?
Well, no, the matter is not finished. That's what he came back for.
Well, then he has to be here. But I would have pray for everything to finish and just get out.
All right. Thank you. All right. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
That situation with Christmas list, it can have a very negative effect on Trinidad culture. And because what happens, I look at YouTube all the time from out here, and I see some places in Trinidad I never knew existed. Some beautiful, beautiful places, and I see different sort of dishes that weren't around when I left Trinidad. And if you're a YouTuber, you may start thinking twice about going to Trinidad. So you could be charged for working on a permit. Okay? So I'm just saying that the way they're treating Mr. Christopher, whatever Hughes, that could have a serious negative effect on
But you
Trinidad.
should not be working without a permit.
Excuse me?
You should not be working in this country without a work permit if you're not born here.
I understand, but right, that's perfectly correct. You're correct, but people come and do it all the time, and they say, look,
so because they come and do it all the time illegally, they should be allowed to continue doing it. That's what you're saying?
No. What I'm saying is this: what they will do is think twice about coming to Trinidad. They'll go somewhere else.
What they should do if they want to come here and work is to get a work permit.
I understand what you're saying, Paul.
Implying that it's okay to come here and break the law because we're getting promotion from it, and I don't agree with that.
No. I'm not saying they should come and break the law, Paul. What I'm saying is that they will go somewhere where they do not think that anything will happen. Okay?
What do you mean by anything would happen? What do you mean by anything would happen?
Excuse me?
What do you mean by anything will happen?
What I'm saying is this. No one is affected harassing people in Jamaica or Grenada. So they will go somewhere where it's easier to film without anyone saying, well, listen, you need a work permit. Whereas coming to Trinidad, they'll say, listen, you still have the Christmas list, let's go somewhere else instead. And that's what I'm just saying. I'm not saying you come to Trinidad and break the law. I'm not advocating that at all.
If you are suggesting that they will go somewhere else where they're not harassed because they don't have a work permit, that's confusing to me.
Excuse me?
If you are saying they will go somewhere else because they will not be harassed in your terms when they don't have a work permit, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
So you have no problem with them coming here and working without a work permit?
I keep telling you, I'm saying that. I am not advocating that. I'm saying that I'm just saying that people will go somewhere where they would not think they will be harassed. I'm not advocating they come and break the law. The third time I'm saying that.
Thank you.
Work in Trinidad, you follow the law. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, big guy. All the best to you. Taking a couple, one or two calls again. 222-8255. Like big guy, it's a toll-free number, 866-525-1099. All right? And good morning to all those watching us on Me TV, M and E TV. Good morning to you all. Seems to be working nicely this morning so far. It is frozen now, but okay. Right. Yeah. So we'll take a couple of
debate on tonight in the U.S.
Hey, yeah, man. Oh, gosh. Let me apologize to the people.
U.S.
tomorrow.
Vice President and Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris versus former U.S. President Donald Trump. It is a high-stakes event happening on ABC TV, must-watch TV. We will see what happens tonight in the United States.
Yeah. Right now, the polls yesterday, they were tied 49-49. Good morning, caller.
Yeah, good morning, Steve. Again, some static. So you might hear and I'm staying low. Your guys at the congratulate 9 o'clock the minister of Jamaica, the deputy manager of the IMF. Son of the country, Jamaica is a country I have admired because they are based in sports and music, etc. So that you all could have accolades. Right, again, some.
Yeah, you're breaking up here too. I don't know what's going on. Let me check.
It's clearly on our end. We apologize for that.
Yeah, thank you. Let me just I want to take this call to check something. Good morning.
Yeah, morning. And there, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Patrick.
Some time back, about BI. in the airport to go to port, collect like about box. I don't know if all the investigators find out which is, but I hear people talking about it.
Unfortunately, I did not hear you clearly. So
Yeah, talk about what again, Mr. Patrick?
BIR number one collect a good report and in the airport like
Yeah,
I don't have a
Patrick,
chance to investigate it yet. Mr. Patrick is asking about the issue relating to whether the information that he got regarding needing a BIR number to collect your goods in the airport is true. So we will have to find out for you, Mr. Patrick. That's what I got from the question. All right.
So I heard people say they had us to go to that,
Yeah, I heard that too. I'll have to check that out, Mr. Patrick.
but nobody has nobody ain't talking about it.
Well,
The BIR for them to talk about it, but you could talk about the man who $1 million and that one win 60-something million, but for the little man who might have to go and collect a barrel or a drum, but that be a number.
all right.
Understand?
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know what's going on there, Mr. Big
Neither
Guy.
me. We apologize for that. Let's go to the news headlines. I have a question already based on the wow. Let's start with the Express. It is Tuesday, 10th September. Let's start with the Daily Express online. There's a picture of Minister of Finance Colin Member, and the headline in the article by Anna Ramdas is Stubborn Jaiwanti. Finance Minister Colin Member has accused Auditor General Jaiwanti Ramdas of engaging in a campaign of non-cooperation. Stubborn Jaiwanti. Wow. AG Mum on report, John report. No audit report yet on 2.6 billion revenue disparity. Pekong for Young. Of course, he's acting prime minister. There was a lot of Pekong in both the Senate and the House yesterday about the second acting position of Minister of Energy and Energy Industry, Stuart Young. That'll be the subject of our question this morning. Suniti and 20 million judgment. Taxpayers have the right to know. UNC dissidents have been politically distanced, and the day at the beach ends in death, sadly. Let's move to the news day now for today. Vera West condemned Senate attack on court official. Planning Minister, climate challenges bring opportunities. Opposition leader, central bank must be investigated. Auditor General special report on public accounts, no internal audit on $2.6 billion error. Imber, Auditor General report shows non-cooperation, criticizes officials. Health Ministry, dengue deaths now at 16. I heard two people I know very well diagnosed with dengue. You'll be careful with dengue out there. I shall not name them. As September 30th deadline approaches, confusion over property tax queries. And NACTA, PNM holds early advantage ahead of elections. Let's go to the Guardian now for today. Kamla, why did central bank not allow Auditor General access to data? AG, 45 people had marijuana charges expunged since December 2019. Hines reveals 34 officers promoted after glitch debacle in the TTPS. Christmas list released from Immigration Detention Center. I'll try to get him on tomorrow. Shigwana's businessman extorted, police investigating. Public's help sought to ID 2 bodies, Baratayaman killed in ongoing gang warfare. UNC dissidents shuffled in house. Diwali Naga kicks off in October with focus on the family. And Ramdas report cites inability to review CBTT data. So those are some of the trending stories in your Express, Guardian, and Newsday for today, September 10th, 2024.
Yep. Thank you, Paul. All right, let's get the results of our morning poll, where we asked you yesterday, should police officers who act in a manner to cost the state in matters that are lost be forced to pay from their own pockets? 62%, 62 said yes.
Now, based on his second acting position and the level pecans thrown in both the Senate and the House yesterday. Our question is,
All right.
you're taking notes, right?
Yeah. Just get it
Do
in
you
my
think
page.
acting Prime Minister Stuart Young is being prepped to lead the PNM? Yes or no?
Right. That's our poll. 222-8255. North Americans toll free 866.
Good morning, Wendell.
1099. I'm sure Wendell will call you. Of course, on WhatsApp at 318-1021. Of course, on Facebook and on YouTube. Hanif Daniel. Hanif Daniel says yes.
Do you think acting Prime Minister and Minister of Energy and Energy Industry Stuart Young is being prepared to lead the People's National Movement? Yes or no?
All right. Karen says yes. Donna Clark, yes. Wayne Bennett, yes. Ambrose Blah, yes. Let's see. Captain Ron, yes. David Nelson, yes. Jaron, yes. Good morning, Val. Let's see. Got Captain Ron. We have DJ Ray saying yes. Thank you, DJ Ray. Sending WhatsApp.
You can call and go quick yes or no too, right?
Yeah.
Quick yes or no. The phone ain't working too well this morning.
Antonio Butts says yes.
The phone I get a dengue.
Will Cordes says yes. Good morning, caller. Good morning.
Good morning, yeah.
Thank you.
You taking notes, right, Steve?
Yeah. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. Kansas City team, my answer is no.
Righty. Thank you. Let's see.
Do you think acting Prime Minister and Minister of Energy and Energy Industry Stuart Young is being prepared to lead the People's National Movement?
Pearl Corder says yes. Beefy Smith in Goodwood, Tobago says yes. Ivan Joseph says yes. Julia S. Batiste says yes. Andre says yes. Finbar Collins says yes. Alistair Hart says yes.
You made the question more back on election.
Daniel Knight says
that Stuart Young should be the person. And that'll be more back on that.
Yeah. Daniel Knight says yes. Trinidad and Tobago says yes. Kaiser Mohammed says yes. Ron Farrell says yes.
Online reports indicate 3 persons were shot and killed in Petit Valley last night. We are yet to identify or confirm this.
We have to confirm that.
Initial reports indicate it happened at Pioneer Drive, and the victims include a mother, a father, and a son.
And another son unaccounted for.
Yeah.
All right. Josie Richardson says yes. Lester Craigwell says no. Eddie out in Staten Island says yes. Val says no. Morning, Val. Somebody popped in there. Karen in Goodwood, Tobago. Morning, Karen. Says yes. Have a good day, Karen. You know Beefy Smith? Kerwin Duke says yes. Right. Michael Robinson. Morning, Michael. Says yes. All right. Do you think the acting Prime Minister Stuart Young is being prepared to lead the People's National?
Well, George Chambers wasn't necessarily Afro-Trinidadian, you know.
All right. That's our poll. 222-8255. WhatsApp 318-1021.
Do you think acting Prime Minister Stuart Young is being prepared, groomed to lead the People's National Movement. Zena, good morning.
Zena, Paul was playing your playlist in the car yesterday when he was driving out. I knew that playlist was from you.
Because you're the only woman that...
Oh, geez, we getting rain today. Let's see. Trinidad Margot has been... Okay. Anderson Matthews says no. All right. Do you think Acting Prime Minister Stuart Young is being prepared to lead the PNM? Yes or no?
Coming up after our 7 a.m. newscast, we have criminologist Professor Ramesh Deosaran.
Yep, sent him the link already. Morning, Lorna. Morning, Indy. Carly, of course. Yes. Black Pearl. Morning, Black Pearl. Black Pearl says no. All right. Chris J says yes. Thank you, Chris J. Let's see any more here. Slick Money Grip says yes. Let's get those votes going. Do you think Stuart Young is being prepared to lead the PNM? Yes or no? Yes or no?
But he's acted twice now.
Yeah.
And we know Minister Imber is in the country.
Yeah.
Some may suggest he's busy prepping for the budget. Is the reason why he who has been the choice for the last 9 years, and Dr. Ali is out of the jurisdiction. So it will be interesting to see how it rolls out.
Yes, it would be, wouldn't it? Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Are you answered to the poll, sir?
I'm still in dreamland. Answer to the poll, yes.
There's Zena.
Yeah, more.
You're sounding very masculine this morning. I make out at all. I'm to you.
Yeah, you're very masculine. Thank you, Zena. Go back to bed.
Tired.
Well, you want to do what you want to do every time.
Somebody give Paul a round of applause. Come on.
Wear you out.
Thank you, Zena. Go back and sleep.
Get tap out.
All right.
I tell you, be satisfied with one going, but you want to extend yourself. Come on.
That is your wake-up voice. David Ware says yes. Slick Money Grip. I did Slick Money Grip. Leroy Jeffries, no. Ian Lee in West Trinidad, yes. Ray Garcia, yes. Daniel Knight, laughing at you, Paul.
And I apologize to Zena's neighbors yesterday evening.
Oh, geez, on ages. Bobby, morning, Bob.
The dog started
a long
to howl.
time.
Woo! Woo! I said, Zena, be quiet. Woo! The dog's howling. And then she started singing the song, the campaign song. Da 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 da. Da, 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 da.
Anne Marie says no.
And she only singing the chorus, eh?
Because she don't know the words. CJ New York says yes.
She only know the chorus.
Richard P. Knight says no. Oh my God. I don't know. Yes, I
know. Like she only know the chorus.
Lord, put a hand. Lord, put a hand.
I
find you well know it.
She makes so much noise.
Oh boy.
Go on, rest, Cedar.
News coming up in a short. In less
than
a minute.
I leave a bottle of Ferrell on the kitchen counter. So see if you could take 2 spoonfuls this morning.
Ferrell. I have Ferrell at home. I can get yourself. All right. Yes. There. Can you put that light on? That just follow the cord to put that light on. Yeah.
Good morning, Avril.
Morning.
How are you?
I am good, thank you. Working hard because of Steve.
That's it, yeah.
This one?
Hear it. And the others.
Yeah.
This one here, the red one?
Yes, there. Thank you.
Time for somebody who wants a favor.
All right, let's get into our 7 o'clock major news. There she is. Isn't she lovely? Isn't she wonderful?
And then the rest of it was da 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 da. Sing along if you know the words. Da, da,
This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
There is no resolution with Auditor General Jaiwanti Ramdas on the controversial $2.6 billion 2023 revenue discrepancy impasse. The opposition leader queries central bank's refusal to allow the Auditor General to examine the bank's electronic check clearing system. 5 opposition MPs say they are unfazed over being put to sit separately from other UNC MPs in the House of Representatives. And the number of confirmed laboratory deaths from dengue fever moves to 16. Details in a moment. This is news to 7 o'clock on Power 102 Digital. I'm Avril Sintil-Bob. Good morning. There is no resolution with Auditor General Jaiwanti Ramdas on the controversial $2.6 billion 2023 revenue discrepancy impasse. Finance Minister Colm Imbert stated that the Auditor General's special report on TNT's public accounts for 2023 only adds fuel to the fire, creates more unnecessary public confusion, and does not satisfactorily address the core issue, which, in government's view, has been comprehensively cleared up. He made the comment regarding Ramdas' special report on the public accounts for the financial year 2023 in a statement to Parliament yesterday after presenting the special report. The report involved the core issue of the $2.6 billion discrepancy, which arose with the Auditor General's original report on the 2023 accounts. The Auditor General and Finance Ministry clashed in April over the understatement of the $2.6 billion in revenue in the Auditor General's original 2023 report. The deadline to submit information to the Auditor General was January 31st, 2024. Due to issues with the central bank's new electronic check clearing system, however, finance divisions discovered the $2.6 billion in February, but attempts to have Ramdas include the figure in her 2023 report failed. When her report was sent to Parliament, minus the sum, Imbert refused to present it. Government then changed the law to extend the period for submission of information to the Auditor General and for submission of the report. The issue caused tension on both sides, with the ministry launching a probe of the situation and Ramdas taking legal action on other aspects. Meanwhile, UNC leader Kamla Prasad-Basasa has queried why the Central Bank of TNT refused to allow the Auditor General's request to examine the bank's electronic check clearing system. Prasad-Basasa has called for an investigation into the central bank based on the results of the special report of the Auditor General on the public accounts for the financial year 2023. Speaking at the UNC's cottage meeting in Chaguanas on Monday, Prasad-Basasa said she was informed the report was late, but it was not circulated to members of the UNC up to 3 p.m. yesterday when they left Parliament. The report noted that, to date, there has been no internal audit into the understatement of revenue for the financial year 2023 by the Ministry of Finance. It said the Finance Ministry had said the errors leading to the understatement of $2.6 billion in revenue were caused by errors in the central bank's electronic check clearing system. It said when the Auditor General asked to be allowed to examine the system, the request was denied. Prasad-Basasa said the report said $3 billion was quote-unquote still missing. 5 opposition MPs have said they were unfazed over being put to sit separately from other UNC MPs in the House of Representatives and promised to uphold UNC principles. These were Tabakit MP Anita Haynes-Allen, Naparima MP Rodney Charles, Mayaro MP Rushton Parry, Kamuto Manzanilla MP Dr. Rai Ragbir, and Chaguanas West MP Dinesh Rambali. In the September 9th sitting, the quintet walked into the chamber at 2:03 p.m. and took their seats at the far end of the bench from the whip's seat. The 5 were notified of the seating changes earlier that day without any reason given, presumably by a decision from the opposition leadership. Mayaro Member of Parliament Rushton Parry says he is unsure of his position with the United National Congress at present, more specifically where he stands with the party's leader and the executive. He told the Power Breakfast show yesterday that he was not invited to an election strategy meeting held by the UNC recently in Mayaro or a budgetary meeting as well. He noted this trend began even before the internal elections, which he always found to be concerning.
You would have had a few cottage meetings after the elections. You would have had election strategy meetings. You would have had these budget consultations. I can tell you that I never received any official communications from the party to participate in these. I just wanted, as the MP sitting at the head of the constituency, normally the communication comes to me, and then I disseminate to the members of council at the regional corporation, which, as you know, the MRCRC is politically run by the United National Congress. So I do have a sitting chairman of the corporation and 6 councillors. I think they've created a hostile working environment.
He said he believes that the hostile work environment has been created by the actions of the UNC leader.
So it really tells me that, look, they're prepared to have these things without me. And then you had this election strategy meeting, which was a Sunday evening, where Mayaro was highlighted as one of their key areas. But it made no sense to the organizers that you notify the MP for the area. I saw it like everybody else on Sunday morning when some advertisement on social media came out. I don't think it was even an advertisement, but I think I saw some photos or the other of the preparation of the place. So again, I can't speak on what's happening, from the other side. I can tell you that, it's undeniably very strange that you would have that meeting without me.
You are listening to news on Power 102 Digital to 7 o'clock. The number of confirmed laboratory deaths from dengue fever has now moved to 16. There are also 1,315 laboratory confirmed cases of dengue fever. This information was contained in the latest update from the Ministry of Health. As at September 5th, 2024, a total of 914 yellow fever notices have been issued to property owners and occupiers, directing them to clean up their surroundings. Of this, 43 property owners or occupiers have thus far been identified for the consideration or institution of legal proceedings for non-compliance. Well, finally, here is your weather news for the period today until midnight. Trinidad and Tobago, partly cloudy conditions are expected with few showers at times. There's also a medium chance of isolated afternoon heavy showers or thunderstorms favoring, but not confined to hilly and western areas. Some cloudiness will persist overnight with a few showers. Gusty winds and street or flash flooding may occur near heavy showers and thunderstorms. Expect a temperature high of 33 degrees Celsius, both at Piarco International Airport and Crown Point, Tobago. Currently is 25 degrees Celsius at Piarco and 26 at Crown Point. Recapping your headlines to 7 o'clock, there's no resolution with Auditor General Jaiwanti Ramdas on the controversial $2.6 billion 2023 revenue discrepancy impasse. The opposition leader queries Central Bank's refusal to allow the Auditor General to examine the bank's electronic check clearing system. 5 opposition MPs say they are unfazed over being put to sit separately from other UNC MPs in the House of Representatives, and the number of confirmed laboratory deaths from dengue fever moves to 16. I'm Avril Sindel-Bav. That was news to 7 o'clock on Power 102 Digital. Look out for more news in detail at 12 noon and an update coming up at 8 o'clock this morning. For more details, log on to power102fm.com.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital.
All right. Thank you so much, Avril, for our major news. You could join her again. Come at 8 o'clock for our news brief. At this time, let's take a look at what's happening traffic-wise. Wow. Let me not give you a traffic update. I'm seeing one accident, and it is on Ryson Road. All right. Ryson Road, there's one accident. Ryson and what? Oh, okay. It's by the MP gas station there by licensing office and that vicinity. So that is creating quite a pileup. Colville Street is quite heavy. All right. So there is an accident there. But usually, the way you think you're going to get traffic, you will get traffic. All right. Let's see if you have any more votes. I have nothing there. I have nothing there. Good morning to you, Rapid Fire. All right, let's check our votes. Let me just use my noggin. All righty. All right, so let's get it here. So we had 45 votes on our poll this morning, which was, do you think acting Prime Minister Stuart Young is being prepared to lead the PNM? 37 of you all said yes. 8 said no.
I think he is being prepared.
I think he is too.
It's clear to me.
Yeah.
He's been on almost every official trip with Dr. Rowdy in the last 4 or so years.
Yeah, that's true.
And we'll see. Steve, did you know, this is a Wendell earlier, I just came across this in the scientificfacts.com, that a bite from the Brazilian wandering spider can cause an erection that lasts up to 4 hours.
Wendell has a farm.
Could you imagine? Sounds very painful.
Not saying a word. Staying quiet.
And the bite too.
I'm staying quiet on that. Not getting into that. All right. Of course, we are going to have Professor Ramesh Devsaran on. I sent him already long time this morning. We're going to talk crime.
Let me put another question so I don't forget. Another question for tomorrow. Do you think the treatment of the 5 dissidents can cost the UNC the election? I don't want to forget.
Type it up one time because you know you will forget. I'm just trying to get something here. Oh, here it is, PP. Here it is, PP. Got it for you, PP. There you go. All right. Esther says no to the poll. It's kind of close. So you can go to our mobile app, which you should have by now, or our website at power102fm.com and continue to vote. Continue to vote, and I'll give you final results tomorrow. Of course, we have to say thank you, David, for reminding me. On the passing of James Earl Jones, who died at his home in New York yesterday at the age of 93. David, I am your father.
While he was a very excellent actor and theater practitioner, he is very controversial. He made some very controversial statements regarding Black women that they didn't forget him on social media yesterday. So, but may he rest in eternal peace. He had a magnificent voice. He was the voice of Darth Vader, Star Wars Darth Vader.
And then in Lion King.
He was Simba, one of them. I've never seen that, you know. So
no, really?
No.
You need to get some children in your life.
I don't like animated shows.
Really? Well, they have a new one coming out. I've been told I have to take them to go and see it. What's the other show coming out? Moana 2 is coming out. Already get prepped. My life is planned out by little ones. Stuart Young said we are very wicked. I sent him a picture of our poll this morning. He said, "Oh, you're wicked." Then he goes, "What's the percentage?"
He wants to know what the voters do. You want to know what the voters.
Yeah. There you go. "Oh, you're wicked." Yeah. Professor's not on yet?
No, Steve, he's not.
All right. Let's give him a buzz. See where he's at. Let me just give my buzz there, Paul, by the time.
In the meantime, we can open the lines. Let you discuss the major news headlines. Another potential question could have been this morning: should the Auditor General been granted access to the electronic check clearing system in the central bank as part of her audit? I still don't understand why, because I spoke to several senior auditors when this was happening, and they all said in addition to actually auditing the numbers, they also audit the systems that generate the numbers to ensure that the systems are in compliance with best practice and that there are no gaps in the systems, particularly when you're moving from an old system to a new system. And this move to this new system is what, in the words of the Minister of Finance, caused the issue. So I don't understand why they wouldn't give her access to examine the electronic check clearing system.
All right, Professor should be there by now.
So it's very curious.
Yeah.
It's very curious. And the central bank is an independent institution. So
yeah, I'll read up on that.
The bank governor could have made a decision, okay, here, given the controversy that's come about, you can have access to check the system. You see secrecy, and I always have pause for concern with secrecy and live. But as I said earlier on, maybe there's a reason, but they should provide the reason if they didn't think it was prudent to give the Auditor General access to the system to check its reliability and validity. But I haven't seen Professor yet, so.
Really? He said he was there. He said he clicked to enter the studio.
Well, unless I'm seeing things or not seeing things, he's not in the system yet.
He said he did what he had to do. Let's call him. Time.
So while we wait on Professor Amish Diasran, who is a criminologist, who certainly will add his voice.
You can grab his call.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning to all your colleagues.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Dr. Paul, and good morning, my good friend, Mr. Steve. Steve, are you there?
Yes, he's there. He's taking a quick call to confirm our guest is in the system.
Oh, okay. So, Dr. Paul, how are you going, sir?
I am fine, thank you. And your good self?
I am, watching everything, it's election season over here, so you know what's going on.
Yeah, I know you all must be waiting with great anticipation for the debate tonight.
Man, like everybody. Anyway,
well,
Dr. Paul, I know you guys, I don't call in often, but I always doctor and listen whenever I get a chance to. What was the poll question today, sir?
Do you think the question is, do you think acting Prime Minister Stuart Young is being prepared to lead the People's National Movement?
Oh, okay. I would say yes to that question. Yeah,
I would also say yes.
Dr. Rowley have real big confidence in Mr. Stuart Young. So, good morning, Mr. Wendell, Stephen, wherever you are, sir. I'll talk to you in a minute. I hope all is well.
Hey, Ellie, morning. How you going?
Hey, Dr. Steve Cancer. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, pal. Be careful with all those wildfires that you have out there.
Oh, boy. Oh, God. Yesterday I was driving and I was watching the horizon there. But I saw the sky looking, the whole sky looking like it's on fire.
Yeah. I was listening to a news report and it's saying that fire is actually creating its own weather system.
There are two fires. That
one on opposite sides, yeah.
Yeah, burn about 25,000 acres already.
Yeah, boy.
Anyway, guys, I love to listen to you.
Thank you, Ellie. All the best to you. All right. Professor.
Good morning, Posh. How are you, sir?
Good morning. Morning.
Hope all is well.
Well, not yet.
Not
like
yet.
Everybody else, we're waiting to see what will happen in the near future.
Mm-hmm.
We have a long way to go before that near future, and a lot to discuss,
Mm-hmm.
Prof, of course, we want to talk a couple of things with you this morning, particularly regarding the disturbing crime situation in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes, well, I am willing to answer the questions.
You have a little volume, a delay volume issue there. Crime situation in Trinidad and Tobago. You have an extra device on there?
Yes, try to get the volume.
Okay.
Right.
Right. Last week, the Ministry of National Security held a press conference, which was attended to by both, Minister Hines, Minister Scotland, the Chief of Defense Staff, and the Commissioner of Police, and some of her team. At which time the DCP Benjamin indicated that the police service is in charge and in control of crime, much to the chagrin of many citizens. Do you think the police service is in charge of crime and control?
If I am to judge by the voices of the people, and even some of my colleagues from the university, and people like yourself on these talk shows, overall, I think the answer will be no. And I think the authorities, those names that you listed, the first step they should take is to have a frank and plain admission that crime has gotten out of control, because you have these murder rates rising, you have extortion escalating with serious economic and social implications, and you have the home invasions unstoppable. If you take these three criteria alone, what you have is a society scared and apparently helpless. And if you have these officials coming on the press conferences, they should seek to inspire people by first making an admission and also create the pathway for remedies. We seem to forget, for example, that the police commissioner, after years of debate and complaints by different commissioners, that you have authority but no power, meaning that they need power. And the Constitution gave them that. The Commission is responsible now for the entire police service, managing resources, promotion, transfers. So the question would arise, as one example, to what extent is the police commissioner fulfilling that mandate? If not, what are the consequences? And how should those consequences be properly, fairly applied? But we're not hearing those issues. We keep going around on a merry-go-round. And I say so very respectfully and regretfully. The media is now on the merry-go-round. Every time there's a press conference, you get the big headlines, the superficial statements being said. Sorry. And every time there's a press conference, the media hops on until the next cycle arises. I say so very respectfully, because if you say, for example, the Prime Minister is angry and shocked, that is a big front page. What happens after that? Every commentator coming afterwards is coming after the fete is over with a little spot in the fourth page or fifth page.
The Commissioner of Police responded.
On and on.
The Commissioner responded to a question.
The question I have to raise now is that what is the role of the media in the issue of crime in relation to the authorities and the public response? I'm sorry to cut you off, Paul, but
No, it's a valid question. Just early this week, I indicated to Steve that we wanted to get senior media practitioners on to talk about if they think the media is operating adequately at those press conferences, because questions have been raised about if they are effective in holding the authorities to account in the press conferences or just asking really superficial questions when answers are given. I want to go back to the statements you made in response to the first question, where the commissioner responded to a question from a journalist to ask if she agreed with her DCP that the police were in control. And the commissioner's response, and I'm paraphrasing here, was that, well, the police are judged by the main metrics of murders. And murders are understandably a significant metric because people are losing their lives in large amounts. I think somebody said yesterday in Senate, every 3 days, 2 people, or every 2 days, 3 people lose their lives in this country based on the current trends. And she said murders were the main metrics, but no, people are now scared of home invasions. My understanding is I heard from 4 different people yesterday in different constituencies that even roadside vegetable retailers are now the victims of extortion attempts. And I think the police have put a new system in place. What do you think is the main gap in, and I'll come back to the media issue in a while, in the effectiveness of the police service presently?
You know, as I spoke about the merry-go-round, I too are caught up in the merry-go-round. Without elaborating, because there's a personal aspect to this, Paul. You know, we have done the manpower audit. And the question you're asking, we have answered that in 600 pages. But coming back to your precise concern, what the commissioner is saying is missing the point. And what the journalists who were there at the press conference should have asked repeatedly is, well, the numbers of murder is one aspect. That's not the main metric is what is your detection rate? If you have your detection rate high, relatively high, 60%, 70%, you will find out a couple of important things for strategizing onwards. That is, you will know where these murderers are coming from, alleged murderers. You will know their profile, how rich or poor they are, whether they were employed, what is the educational level. And when you ask those precise policy-oriented questions, you could then intervene. And perhaps because the people who are committing murders are not being detected, they become recidivists. They keep on doing the same thing. So the journalists now should press on the question of detection rate. And whilst the media will publish the rate 430, 440 murders and compare it to last year for the same period, they also have to put alongside that the detection rate, because that is where the police intervention actually comes in. Because they will tell you, the police that is, and rightfully so, they cannot stop all murders, domestic murders, for example, crimes of passion and so on. But they can deal with the detection rate. So what the commissioner, particularly the commissioner, has to come up front and tell the public what is it that she is missing so much that the detection rate, especially on murder, and the similar thing is happening to other crimes. What is she missing in technology, manpower, government policy, vehicles, and so on? But we're not hearing that, frankly. What we're seeing, and I'm a little amused, I'm not particularly angry because this has been going on for years, Paul. You would know. You're in the middle of the issue all the time. This press conference and picture taking and so on and getting the front page, and after that, everything dies down until the next cycle. We have to stop that culture of distraction. We have to get serious and realize this country is going down the drain. And it is fueled by 3 major frightening episodes. One is the murder rate. And the randomness of the murder is frightening. It isn't that they're going in one district or one area. It's happening from Belmont to Cedras, San Grande. There's nothing like urban crime or rural crime anymore. It's a national crisis. Then you have this extortion. Businesses are deciding to close up now. And that is bad for public service, especially with getting fuel and other essentials you need. And then you have the home invasions. People sleeping, pensioners sleeping, and they're getting murdered. They're getting killed and robbed. So we're in a serious crossroads. And the authorities need to recognize that. And whilst there's a road for public relations, there has to be a pathway for policy making, implementation with benchmarks and accountability. It looks as if nobody is accountable at the top. And that is where the Police Service Commission also comes in.
I'm glad you mentioned that. You brought that into the conversation, because I was going to ask you that as the next question. You are saying hold the media to account to operate at a higher level. But the present Commissioner of Police has been given another year extension. The government has said that based on the assessment of the Police Service Commission, and that's their job to assess the Commissioner and her DCPs and their performance, the report out of that was satisfactory enough that the government decided to give Mrs. Harewood Christopher another term. I have not seen a published report of the assessment. You were once chair of the Police Service Commission. Is there anything prohibiting the Police Service Commission from making that assessment public? And should it be made public in terms of bolstering the credibility of the present commissioner?
The way these commissions, these oversight bodies operate all over the world is with full transparency, because they recognize the obligations that they have to the public. Nothing stops the Police Service Commission from doing what you were suggesting. They should have a press conference and answer questions from the public, especially in terms of what are the criteria used to reappoint the police commissioner. They might be very useful. She might be successful in managing the police service, in having crime reduction, and other criteria that the Police Service Commission now uses. What we need is a report. What we need from the Police Service Commission now, and given the context in which we are now, is a press conference to explain. You cannot be shrouded in secrecy in such a serious matter when the public are left wondering, the taxpayers are left wondering, well, what is happening? We're not hearing anything serious about accountability. We're hearing a number of excuses, some of them genuine. I sympathize, I empathize with the police service. I have known them for a very long time. I know when Snaggs was there, when Guy was there, when Roach was there. I worked very closely with them. We did monumental amount of community policing programs. But what was lacking was sustainability. And that's another issue. So the Police Service Commission now should help guide the public into coming to proper and fair conclusions. And there's nothing stopping them from doing that. They cannot be continued shrouded in secrecy. I say so with respect, but at the same time, the chairman and the members must realize they have a public duty as well. And that should come up very early. And now we will have a better idea of what the police commissioner is saying or not saying. And this idea about, there's too much distraction. The recent one now is 80-year-olds committing crimes. What kind of crimes, we don't know. You're talking about extortion, 80-year-olds. Have they held anyone to establish some evidence that it is true? But you get a big headline, and that means nothing, because there is no evidence to suggest.
Well, I found it was a curious statement that the DCP made without adding any context at all, and saying people as young as the teenagers are involved in crime. Well, we knew that for a while. But now people as young as 8-year-olds are involved in crime. But the DCP didn't give us any context as to what type of crime. I think the implication was it was extortion. We didn't know under what circumstances. If it was somebody in a primary school telling another person, if you don't give me $100 tomorrow, I'll go bring my father for you. So you don't get a sense of, and if it is more than one minor in that age demographic, so you don't get a lot of data information at all upon which to see if this is a prevalent or a one-off issue. So it was just, and of course, when you put that out there, it's going to be the headline, unfortunately, without the journalists probing more about that particular statement by the police official.
Well, what happens after that, Paul? You're correct. I mean, pardon me for making reference to you, but you are in the middle of this thing. You have done research, children, and all the other implications from being neglected. But when he made that announcement, that's another bombshell. It's like the Prime Minister saying he's angry and shocked. Big headlines, nothing after that. Then you have another one, there are guns found in Santa Cruz. A large number of guns.
How disturbed are you by the revelation that from the Coast Guard now, Major Daniel, that so many of the naval assets are being repaired on maintenance schedule, and of course that revelation meant that the borders are not being patrolled as effectively as one would expect or hope, given the number of vessels that are now being repaired, and in the context that, well, the illegal guns coming into the country through porous borders and drugs is one of the main reasons that we find ourselves in this country in this position.
Well, Paul, you're adding another element to our security. If your borders are so uncontrolled, non-guarded, what do you expect? How could you come inside now and complain about guns fueling gangs, fueling crime, when your borders, the place where the guns are coming in illegally, the drugs are coming in illegally, if they are not properly covered, you are responsible. And that's why I keep saying you don't want to be unfair, but you want to be fair and transparent. Who is accountable today for the situation in which we find ourselves? And we have to prevent ourselves being distracted time and time again. And the media has a role to play. I mean, I'm thinking about this in a more serious way. How could the media has to publish what is said. There's an obligation. But the question is, how is it published and what happens afterwards? So these more substantive issues. When you highlight these superficial issues and distractions, and you ask somebody like me or from UE to come in, it is not an equivalent input. The FET has been over.
So let me ask you a direct question. Do you think the media is being manipulated?
I think so, very subtly. And I think they have to revise their approach. They are manipulated, I would say, not necessarily maliciously, like bribing or what Satmaraj used to call back pocket journalism. But the whole issue of reporting, crime especially, has to be revisited, because you cannot allow the authorities to come and deliberately say something that will catch public appetite for sensationalism, which is like the state of emergency. I don't know where that comes from, but the press is after it as if it is something so it came.
So you think, for example, that's another red herring designed to distract?
I think that is a distraction now, because the fundamental issue is the detection rate. In my view, you haven't done anything to improve the quality of policing. I'm not only talking about the figures, but the quality of policing, your manpower capabilities in terms of how are you trained. Do you get regular assessments? These things are not really qualitatively looked after.
No, you're a criminologist.
There's an issue I want to leave before you.
No, we have 20 minutes, so we have some time.
Yeah.
Have you heard of Tren de Aragua?
Pardon me?
Have you heard of a gang called Tren?
Oh, yeah, they're all kind. They're all names. Yes.
Right. Another revelation after the press conference is that Venezuelan gangs are now collaborating with and competing with local gangs. And from where you sit as a criminologist, are you seeing the type of typology of crime that would indicate that there is a strong presence of Venezuelan gangs in this country? Up to 5 years ago, I started making voicing concerns about when we started, before the devolution of the situation in Venezuela, where there were migrants coming here, illegal migrants coming here because of the unrest in Venezuela and instability, that not only law-abiding citizens were coming, gang members would possibly be coming too. And now we're hearing reports that Trinidad and Tobago, which is on the American watch list, which is one of the most dangerous gangs out of South America, Venezuela in particular, is now wreaking havoc in South Central America, North America, and potentially in the Caribbean. How concerned are you about that new addition to the equation?
It comes back to the border control again as one issue. Secondly, it is not surprising that the gangs, not only from Venezuela, from Colombia, the kind of murders we're witnessing here with decapitation and so on, those are new things, frightful in a sense in terms of the frequency. And the gangs, especially buttressed by input from Venezuela, Colombia, riding on drug trafficking, and Trinidad is very vulnerably placed, very vulnerable. It's placed just north of South America, easy transit point for drugs, human trafficking. So I come back and you raise the point about border control. I mean, it's so serious, it's almost a joke that you will have your borders, the southern border particularly, so on patrol and unmanned. And who is accountable for it? Did you hear anything about accountability? Every 6 months, the police service, the police commissioner, every 6 months, he or she is required to submit a report to the Police Service Commission about how things are going. We would want to know when last was such a report submitted, what are some of the important relevant contents which will cover the issues you are raising. What about gangs? I'm very worried about gangs. Like many people, the gang culture is now so embedded in the community that the residents in various communities support the gangs. They feel the gangs are more friendly to them than the police officers.
But sometimes they're forced to because they're living in fear. And if you go against the dictates of the gang in your community, you pay sometimes a deadly price for it.
Exactly. So you have a culture now of gangsterism deeply rooted in the community, thriving on fear, protection, and receiving basketball courts and other amenities to keep the community friendly to the gang members. Where the gang members come from, apart from the Venezuelans and the Colombians, from the communities. So you have an issue of how do you deal with, how you prevent gang? I am afraid it is almost, the horse has already left the barn in a sense.
But there must be a way to intervene in this productively. I mean, we can't just say the horse lead the gun. There must be a way collectively to intervene and turn around this time.
Well, Paul, we have always been trying to be optimistic. When Hazel Manning was minister, we ran program in almost every secondary school because she felt, and wisely so, as Minister of Education, that a lot of the gangs formation membership come from the secondary schools. Mm-hmm. And we did an index. What are the high risk students that will end up into gangs? We look at missing schools, not doing homework, taking drugs, and we formed an index, and it's about 10 to 15% of the secondary school students fell into that category. And now we were moving into a prevention mode, linking the school output with the community support and the police support and so on. But then she was moved, and a new minister came and everything else. So I was saying earlier on, we lack sustainability. We keep spending money after programs, repeat the same programs a few years afterwards, and give a press release, and everything gets hunky-donkey. Once again, sustainability, accountability, and the process for discipline in the authorities. We have to enforce those things, and certain people sit in the center of it, the Minister of National Security, the chairman of the National Security Council, the police commissioner, and the Police Service Commission. These have constitutional authorities, except the National Security Council, which is the cabinet subcommittee. But these other people have constitutional powers, and they have the resources and the institutional capacity, presumably, to do the work. But we're not doing the work, and crime is falling all over our heads. The extortion thing that was getting very serious, very, very serious.
Do you think academic institutions are doing the level of work they should be doing? I mean, I did some preliminary research, going to the Ministry of Education's website and using the SCA and primary and secondary school attendance as a baseline for seeing where the issues, and identified 3 areas in the last couple of years that consistently underperform at SCA. These are 3 educational districts that consistently underperform. I think it's northwest, northeast, and one part of central Trinidad. You run a correlation between the levels of dropouts from these areas, people who don't complete secondary school, in some instances dropping out at primary school, and you're seeing some very strong correlations, which could be indicators to policy changes, putting more resources in those areas by using the data. Do you think the academic institutions are doing the kind of work and analysis with the data available to provide, as you said, a different kind of narrative and discussion, even in the media?
I think they should. I don't want to be too intrusive to make a judgment on whether they're doing it or not, but they should do that. The question will arise, as in my case, when you produce these reports to the government. I mean, Paul, you should be smiling now, because when you produce these reports to the government, the ministry.
But that's not really the point. The point is to do the work. The ministry uses it, but they can't not do the work. And you have the expertise to provide the comprehensive, credible analysis and say, well, they ain't using it, so we ain't doing it. That's not how academics operates. You know that.
Or you could carry the horse to water, and you know the rest. That's what's happening. So where I sit, it is serious, but I'm amused to see the same thing happening over and over. And when Deputy Commissioner Junior Benjamin make the statement, well, we have crime under control, the public should have no fear, we want to ask, well, in which country is he living? If he tells us, put it differently. So what they try to do is to appease the public concern, and I understand that. They don't want to frighten the public more, but at the same time, we have to be credible. If you don't have credibility, you will not be respected, and you will not be supported in the various communities, because you will come across as a politician more than a police professional. So if you're talking about separating politics from policing, this is a good example. You cannot go on as a police officer and appear as a politician. You have to be professional. You have to admit. You have to show what strategies you're using, what results you have obtained, and carry on. And the public will respect you. They will realize you need genuine help, because if you're telling me crime is under control, what you need my help for?
Well, I didn't understand the statement, because his commissioner, his boss, came before the Joint Select Committee, National Security, in the last 2 cycles, when she was first appointed a couple months after that, and identified some benchmarks, which most of them they didn't make. And more recently, a couple of months ago, came before upon recently being reappointed for another year, and identified a different set of benchmarks, much more moderate benchmarks, and didn't make most of them. So based on that alone, I don't know how DCP Benjamin could have made that statement. Cherry picking 1 or 2 statistics and not looking at the overall picture and context was quite unproductive. And as you said, all it does is you saw memes floating around the internet disparaging what he said, because the population saying, you're not living in the same country that we're living in. So cherry picking 1 or 2 statistical points and positing that as we in control of crime, when the population clearly feels otherwise, and the Prime Minister making a statement, don't blame me, blame the criminals, is really living in a cloud.
Yes. We're living in virtual reality, sort of. See?
I don't think the young man who got killed in Malik shot at point blank range, I don't think his family living in virtual reality. His family has to deal with his murder. You understand?
Yes.
The public,
Yes.
the victims of crime and the effects of crime on the wider society, and the sense of oppression and fear that we feel, the population feels. That's not virtual reality. That's real. That's real life every day, every hour.
You
Coming
see,
at you on social media.
they are victims of crime, but they are secondary victims. When a crime, a murder happens in a family, a home invasion happens, the whole family, man, woman, and child, is put up on grievance mode. If you listen to some of the remarks made by relatives of people who are murdered, the question is asked, and I have a note of some of them. What kind of country are we living in? What kind of place has this come to? When will it end? Who is going to help us? Those are the cries of the public. And that's why at the beginning of the show, I refer to the voices of the people. These voices are ones of grievance, not only concern. The public, from these issues, when these crimes happen in their homes or in the streets, there are a lot of grievances, and you have the public now feeling helpless. So when the police and the related agencies have their press conference, they should attend to this. Don't behave like a politician. Mr. Hines could do that. But the interesting thing, when you have Mr. Hines, National Security Minister, sitting next to the police commissioner and the deputies, they have to be careful about what they say. I'm not saying that the National Security Minister doesn't have a role, but he must be careful about what his role is really about.
Do you think the addition of the additional Minister Scotland, now in charge of the TCPS, immigration, and I think one other portfolio under national security, will or can make a difference?
Well, so far, I think it might be too early, but the number of pictures I think Mr. Scotland got on visiting Tobago and meeting the business people, and he should give a little commitment about, well, in the next 6 months, give him a specific rule over the police service. These might be the results. So we need to hear something more tangible from Mr. Scotland. Now, the outstanding question is, and this is not nitpicking, but if you put a minister over the police service, you have to be careful it doesn't cross the role of the commissioner over the police. You have to.
Well, I was going to ask the question: what is a minister's role? Is policy, resources,
yes,
and resources, and oversight at some level, because they now are part of the National Security Council and they sit weekly and they look. I guess there's a direct conduit now as to whether or not they have resources they need. They can give feedback to the National Security Council. National security is a wide portfolio, so now there are 2 ministers. What should the minister's role be in this case?
The minister should have a serious discussion with the commissioner to find out, first of all, why is the detection rate so low? What can the government, by policy and resources, do to help you improve the detection rate? That's the first thing he should be doing.
He didn't need to be a minister for that. He was chair of the National Security Joint Select Committee, and he asked that question. This committee asked that question over and over. You'd have to be a minister to do that.
Well, you see, he cannot be in the operational zone with the police service, telling them what to do and how to do it and so on. So I think I agree with you. He is supposed to make policies that will help the police commissioner and the police service. That is what he has to do. Find out what they need, how policy can help. And so far, if he wants to venture out, he could say, well, we are giving them so many resources. The Prime Minister has repeatedly said how much resources they have given to the police service. You have hundreds of police vehicles parked up in Komoto, quickly under disrepair. You keep on buying police vehicles without maintenance, proper maintenance, and those are policy issues. the supply of resources, because the Constitution says the commissioner can only use the resources that are available to her. That issue came up when Gibbs and Iwaski were here, and I was chairman of the Police Service Commission. He wanted to buy an aeroplane and so on, and there was something about process. And that issue came up, that the government is responsible for supplying resources, and the commission is responsible for managing those resources effectively. So we come back to square one. We can go all around the place, Paul, but we have to come back to accountability and management. And that is where these press conferences held by the police authorities should focus on. And rather than speaking about 8-year-olds now and trying to sensationalize issues unnecessarily, we should attend to the question of accountability, sustainability, and matters like that for the public interest.
Do you think the present construct and expertise of the TTPS has what it takes to manage to reduce the crime level?
Well,
in the key indices.
We come back to the fundamentals. Sometimes the police service, for example, and the leadership, it looks as there's a sick person that refuses to take the medicine. They need the help, but they refuse to do what is in their interest. And with great reluctance, I refer to the police inspectorate. The question you're asking, supposed to be the role of a police inspectorate unit, gather all the information from each police station, what is deficient, what is the relationship between the citizen and the police, what the police need in Togo is different from Port of Spain, and all those essentials at the ground level will then be collected, assessed, and given a proper manner to the executive of the police commissioner's office. So the gaps will remain because we don't have any remedy, any strategy to collect the data at the bottom line. Whatever we and anybody else might be doing, the police themselves should collect proper data to help them manage the police service. You cannot manage the police service at the top without having the proper data coming from the ground level. You can't only have press conference at the top and talk about things. Leadership in the police service has to be directly at gathering information and then working on it. What they fancifully call evidence-based management. Are we seeing enough of that in the police service? And if Commissioner Ola Christopher having problems with resources, she should tell the government that and get the remedies in place. I have a suspicion she's shortage of remedies in that respect, but she should be robust enough to tell the police, national security minister and the government what she needs.
Well, if it's funding, to my knowledge, in the last three political cycles, national security and education have gotten the largest part of the pie, with the exception of COVID when health moved up for obvious reasons. So one wonders if funding is the issue, or use of the funding, effective use of the funding, because like $8 billion, if I'm not mistaken, thereabouts, and I think it may have gone down to 7 when they try to reduce the budget, but they usually get the largest share of the budget. Whether or not it's being used effectively is a question I guess we will all have to answer. Professor, thanks for being with us this morning. Any closing comments?
Well, Paul, what I will tell you, I feel myself in a very uncomfortable position.
Likewise.
Having to comment on policing, but I have done this so many times. I have to ask myself on the question about the media. How long are we going along with this same routine? Interviews, discussions, and nobody's hearing, nobody's listening. So I would suggest that the media has to revisit its role and develop some strategies to enforce accountability rather than just reporting on press conferences.
And grabbing sensational headlines. Professor, thanks for being with us this morning.
Yeah. Have a great day. Thank you, Professor. All the best.
All right. Professor Ramesh Desaran, criminologist, former chair of the police service.
Interesting conversation.
Have a wonderful, safe day to you all. Richard will be joining us tomorrow, and Wendell will also be here. Coming up Next, we'll have a replay of the interview we did with Rushton Parry yesterday, right here on Power 102 Digital. AV's up next with the news.
All right. Thank you so much, Paul. Let's get into our 8 o'clock news brief. As Paul said, AV is in.
This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
It is time for your news update at 8 o'clock. I'm Avril Sintil-Bab. Good morning. Criminologist Professor Ramesh Deosaran says, judging from the views of the public and other stakeholders, the police service is not in control of crime. He said the police service needs to admit that crime is out of control. He said that murders, home invasions, and extortion has risen rapidly and sharply, and that cannot be ignored or denied. During a news conference last week, the TTPS said that crime was not out of control. Professor Deosaran, who spoke on the Power Breakfast show this morning, said that the media is also guilty of its role in the crime situation. He questioned how effective the media was in holding the authorities to account and whether they were more interested in splashing headlines and sensationalism. He said journalists at last week's media conference should have challenged the police commissioner on the detection rate of the TTPS. He noted if the people committing these heinous crimes are not being detected, then they will continue to commit the atrocities. He said that the police commissioner must say what she's missing in technology and manpower to make this happen. He said, as it stands, violent crime is now a national crisis that is not confined to just certain parts of the country, and maintained that the gang culture has been so embedded in TNT that gang members are being protected by neighborhoods and villages. There is no resolution with Auditor General Jaiwanti Ramdas on the controversial $2.6 billion 2023 revenue discrepancy impasse. Finance Minister Colm Imbert stated that the Auditor General's special report on TNT's public accounts for 2023 only adds fuel to the fire, creates more necessary public confusion, and does not satisfactorily address the core issue, which in government's view has been comprehensively cleared up. He made a comment regarding Ramdas' special report on the public accounts for the financial year 2023 in a statement to Parliament yesterday after presenting the special report. The report involved the core issue of the $2.6 billion discrepancy, which rose with the Auditor General's original report on the 2023 accounts. 5 opposition MPs have said they were unfazed over being put to sit separately from other UNC MPs in the House of Representatives and promised to uphold UNC principles. These were Tabakit MP Anita Haynes-Allen, Naparima MP Rodney Charles, Mayaro MP Rushton Parry, Komodo Manzanilla MP Dr. Rai Ragbir, and Chaguanas West MP Dinesh Rambali. In the September 9th sitting, the quintet walked into the chamber at 2:03 p.m. and took their seats at the far end of the bench from the whip seat. The 5 were notified of the seating changes earlier that day without any reason given, presumably by a decision from the opposition leadership. And the number of confirmed laboratory deaths from dengue fever moves to 16. There are also 1,315 laboratory confirmed cases of dengue fever. This information was contained in the latest update from the Ministry of Health. As at September 5th, 2024, a total of 914 yellow fever notices have been issued to property owners or occupiers, directing them to clean up their surroundings. Of this, 43 property owners or occupiers have, thus far, been identified for the consideration or institution of legal proceedings for non-8 o'clock. Look out for news in full.
Legislation sets the tone for how we treat each other as a society. It provides those boundaries and the expectations, and it also upholds the rights of all of the citizens.
Legislation is important for everyone in society as it sets rules and regulations that create an organized, safe, and fair environment in which everyone is equal.
They form the opinion that because you have a disability, that you are somehow unintelligent, stupid, ridiculously asinine, you name it. So legislation is quite important, and I hope that legislation is soon coming so that people with disabilities can be who they are. People first, disabilities after.
Good morning to you, Mr. Rushton Parry. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yes,
morning,
thank you
Mr.
for
Parry.
being with us.
How is Mayaro this morning?
Sunny. The weather is great. We had a wonderful weekend in terms of our beaches and so on. So I think all is good. We are saddened by the loss of the 2 young lives for the Mayaro, young man and woman who was killed in New Grant. That brought a bit of dark cloud over the community. But other than that, we're
How are
faring
the
well.
community members coping with that? It was so traumatic.
It's bad. It's bad. And this is just one of several that has occurred in the Mayaro constituency over the last couple of months. So we are seeing a rise in murders, which is something that was, you get it every now and then, but almost every week for the last couple of months, we've been having these events. I mean, one of the more tragic ones was the killing of the young businesswoman in San Fernando in front of Toyota. That was I mean, I don't know, but the family is still reeling from that. Police is investigating. So, like the rest of the country, the entire of Trinidad and Tobago is now turning into a crime hotspot. So we listen carefully to what's happening at national security, at the police, and perhaps if time gives, we can talk a bit about that later on.
Now, we already started talking about this, so we may as well continue. There's some business leaders and some religious leaders who are calling for limited states of emergency. I don't know if that's allowed under our legislative framework. What are your thoughts on that as a mechanism to deal with burgeoning crime?
I have been speaking to quite a few business leaders in my network, quite a few senior retired police officers as well. And there seems to be a need from their perspective for a limited state of emergency. Now, my personal view is that a state of emergency is what you call a high impact, short duration tool. You use that to bring massive suppression of movement in a certain place, whether it's an entire country, whether it's in a few areas, but it is what you do inside of that state of emergency. We had the Attorney General come to the Parliament and say, listen, he knows the 200 gangs, 200 or 300 gangs, every single one of them. He wanted us to agree to legislation in terms of the anti-gang. We went back and forward. Eventually, we gave them some leeway on that. Nothing has happened. What do you do inside of the state of emergency? What can we do to lock down the borders, suppress movement around the borders? In a state of emergency, the police has powers of search and seize without warrants. So you don't have to wait. There's a feeling that when police has to get a warrant to go and search somebody's house, somewhere in the network, the information is leaked and the people take up all the gun and drugs and so on and go hide it by the neighbor, banana tree under some kind of tree somewhere. So during the state of emergencies, you have to act and go and stop and seize and use your power of, I wouldn't call it martial law, but your power to act without having too much of information being shared on the network where it can leak. So the long and short of it is that, a limited state of emergency to me can be used as a stopgap, short, high impact tool, but it's what you do inside of it makes it.
That is accommodated for in our constitution, our laws?
Yes, it is. Because, when we say limited, it means that you can either limit it in time, because you can tell it can go from one day to another day, or you can limit it in geographic location, like when we had a state of emergency around the Red House to seize a Speaker of the House. So it is accommodated for in our legislation.
How would you respond to those who suggest, well, you have a limited time or limited geographic jurisdiction state of emergency, but the people that you're seeking to apprehend with the police increased powers are not going to stay in those areas from the time they hear a state of emergency in X place. They're moving out because they listen to the news too. They're not going to stay if they know it's in jurisdiction A. They know what's coming to that jurisdiction. They know that jurisdiction has been put under state of emergency to enable certain actions by law enforcement. Why would I stay there?
Well, that's a good point. It's a good point. And I do not think a geographic state of emergency ought to be used for more than 1 day or 2 days or in specific circumstances. Because you're right, they're going to move. So like when the police comes and says, look, we're going to turn Mayaro into a point of interest for the TTPS and we're going to be putting more patrols and more police officers on the ground. Well, all right. Well, if you're coming to Mayaro, I go in and head Moruga, or I'm going to head to San Fernando. So again, it comes back to a methodology. It comes back to a strategy and which version of it that you want to allow your your anti-crime strategy to work best. So I can't see a geographic state of emergency for one particular area.
Coupled with which, police have the ability now, if they feel Mr. X, Mr. Smith, nebulous name, is involved in gang activity and or serious crime, they can go to a judge to get a warrant and seize the evidence. This country has experienced already states of emergency or a state of emergency where it was applied. People went in, arrested people, and they ended up suing the state because no evidence was procured and no prosecutions came out of that. What is to stop that from happening again? And if you have the intelligence that's accurate now, what's stopping you now from getting a warrant and going and seize the persons and all the evidence to support your arrest and charge?
Well, it comes back to fixing the issues within the operators of the judicial system. I always maintain the fact that you can throw legislation, you can throw technology in national security. But if the basic issues of the operators, the issues of the police, the issues of forensics, I remember in 2016, the Minister of Finance came and he talked about a $70 million injection into building a new forensic laboratory in Trinidad and Tobago. It is 2024. And the only thing that has been done in forensics is put on a 40-foot container with air condition to put samples. So we have to fix these issues. And you're right, Paul. You know, my understanding of the failure of the 2013 or 2014 SOE is that the police was under so much of pressure that they went ahead very exuberantly and they arrest people from a side.
Under pressure from whom?
Well, the public, because the public wants to see action. I understand sometimes in these meetings, the leadership say, fellas, go out there and do your job and put pressure, and they went out there. And you're right, proper evidentiary strategies were not put in place, and most of the cases, I understand, that was fought in the court, they lost and they had to pay these guys. You need to be smarter in that. I can't say, I can't recall whether the legislation itself was faulty. It's just that the police may have not done the right thing in terms of making the arrest. If you have to do that this time, they have to be a more particular in terms of how they follow due process to arrest people.
Mr. Parry, I want to just focus a little bit on your district, your area, your parliamentary district. And just a correction before, the limited state of emergency where the Speaker of the House wasn't at Red House. It was where the resident was. It was where she lived.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Gotcha.
The issue of your area, I know some years ago, Mayaro featured heavily in the news concerning immigrants coming across and on the beach and all manner of things. I think you had a councillor there who was very much in the news about what's happening there. What is your area like? Do you still have those issues down there?
No, I have not heard of any mass movement of immigrants via the seaports and so on. We have heard of one or two times, I think, in the last year, where police would have intervened in certain areas where they had information of mass gathering of more so Venezuelans, whether they came in via boat or they were transported from another location to Mayaro. I won't have that information. But what you do have in Mayaro as a constituency, you do have a proliferation of Venezuelan migrants who are domiciled in the area. There's a lot of Venezuelans who work in the private sector. You go into the supermarkets, gas stations, and so on. You do see quite a bit of them. In terms of whether they are causing a high impact on the local economy, I do feel there is some stress being put on in terms of the job market. I do hear from time to time where our locals are complaining that, a lot of these low-end non-technical jobs are going to Venezuelan migrants. And, what can we do about that? As long as they are registered with the Ministry of National Security and they carry the necessary paperwork, businesses are allowed to hire them. So
is it then that you are satisfied with the efforts of the national security operatives in your area? Because I'll tell you what we don't hear about in Mayaro, and it may be happening, but we don't hear about it. Extortion, home invasions, and so on. You don't hear those things, that kind of news coming out of Mayaro. Is it that you don't have it, or it's suppressed, being suppressed?
Oh, it's there. It's there. I can tell you, there are quite a bit of home invasions that are happening. Home invasions, some of them get reported, not all. And I want to be very careful how I tell you this, because it's a very sensitive issue. There are home invasions that occur where women and children are sexually interfered with. And culturally, in some homes, you're not going to report that to the police because there is a cultural taboo issue when your women folks are violated in your home. And that is happening throughout the country. I've spoken, privately or one-on-one to police officers. And they will tell me flat, Parry, there is a serious issue and people are not reporting it because of that factor. And that is something that's happening. That has to be addressed. Issue of extortion. We have had a few extortion cases reported in Mayaro by some businessmen. There is a feeling that the loss of life of the young lady in San Fernando in front of Toyota, there may have been some extortion issues involved in that. Now, obviously, families keep those things quietly. It's not in the media because the police is doing their investigation, and I am all one for allowing the police to do their work. But to answer your question, Wendell, yes, there are cases of extortion. Yes, there are cases of home invasions. Unfortunately, it doesn't make the news. Several of them is not reported to the police.
Mr. Parry, Parliament resumes today for the last sitting of the fourth session, both houses. And the fourth session will be prorogued and the fifth session will start. How is your relationship with the Mrs. Prasad-Bissess and the UNC leadership at this time?
She has not spoken to me directly since the campaign. I know she's been in and out of the country. I have had several communications, one way as it may be, to the General Secretary, to the Chairman of the party. I've raised several matters, personal matters as well with them for their attention. I've also reminded them that the issues that were raised during the campaign, we need to address them. I shared with the Chairman, the GenSec, and the Chief Executive Officer, that's Dr. Ragoobarsingh. I have shared with them a lot of correspondences that I would have had with the political leader in the run-up to the election. I shared a document with them with all the issues that I raised that I think we needed to address. For their response, for their attention, unfortunately, sadly, I have received no response from them either. So I go to Parliament this morning. I go with very optimistic that when I meet my colleagues, I will, if the opportunity arises, to engage them on some of those matters. And we see how it goes. To answer the question about relationship, I remain in good standing as far as I am aware. With my colleagues, I bear no animosity to anybody. Very respectful. There are, places and positions in the party. Fellows who hold offices, and I continue to remain respectful to those offices.
You said the correspondence was one, which means there was no response from either Mrs. Prasad-Bissess or the executive leadership. There have been reports in the media that I can't confirm, but you tell me if it's true, that there are meetings that are taking place that you nor your other four colleagues have not been invited to. Would that be correct?
So far, even prior to the internal elections, I can speak for myself that there had already been a lack of participation on my part, not because I wanted it. For my part, in terms of Monday night meetings, in terms of opposition press briefings, there were very little requests for my attendance. Now, I always find that strange because outside of MP Tanku, who shadows finance and economy, I shadow trade and industry, digital transformation. I do some energy. I do some tourism. I felt since these were key components of our national framework and perhaps key components of our diversification desire, I thought those are important areas to speak on. Prior to that, you would have had a few cottage meetings after the elections. You would have had election strategy meetings. You would have had these budget consultations, I can tell you that I never received any official communications from the party to participate in these. I just want to clear
Is
up
this
an issue.
unusual? Had you been invited in previous years? Is this unusual?
Absolutely. As the MP sitting at the head of the constituency, normally the communication comes to me, and then I disseminate to the members of council at the regional corporation, which, as you know, the MRCRC is is politically run by the United National Congress. So I do have a sitting chairman of the corporation and 6 councillors. Normally, that conversations happen through me to them, and then
would you go so far as to say that you think you've been sidelined?
That's an understatement. I think they've created a hostile working environment, at the end of the day, by not communicating. But I can tell you this. As a disciplined member of any organization, when I saw these things, and I want to use the example of the budget consultations. When I saw the date, which I was never asked, it was the 14th of August. It was published on our social media. I immediately wrote the chairman and the general secretary, advising both of them that, look, I am seeing this date bandied about for a budget consultation. However, since there was no conversation with me, my travel schedule has already been booked and I will not be in the country. However, if you can bring it up or if you can do it after, I will participate. However, if you can't move your date, allow me to offer my assistance in any way, whether I have to pay for chair and table and PA system and so on, I'll be happy to participate. I received no response. If I got a response, it probably was okay. Now, in the business world, no response means no problem. So I went ahead on my vacation, and that was the end of it. So it really tells me that, look, they're prepared to have these things without me. And then you had this election strategy meeting, which was a Sunday evening, where Mayaro was highlighted as one of their key areas. But it made no sense to the organizers that you notify the MP for the area. I saw it like everybody else on Sunday morning when some advertisement on social media came out. I don't think it was even an advertisement, but I think I saw some photos or the other of the preparation of the place. So again,
so there's an election strategy meeting, and Mayaro is identified as a key constituency in the upcoming election. And I guess no screening. You've put forward your name to represent the constituency once again.
Yes.
Do you interpret that as maybe whoever the choices maybe have been invited to the meeting and not yourself?
Well, I can't speak on what's happening, from the other side. I can tell you that, it's undeniably very strange that you would have that meeting without me. Now, that being said, Mayaro has a very sound and well-oiled election machinery. We've done remarkably well over the last 20 odd years. The success of the elections in Mayaro is not pinned to any one particular person. But at the end of the day, we have a formula that has worked for the last 2 general elections. You have a candidate, a sitting candidate, an incumbent that has done reasonably well. So much so that I think both the PNM and the UNC really know what to do with me. My understanding is that the PNM screening was put on halt because they're waiting to see what the UNC going and do with Parry before they make a decision. Now that tells me that I would have done something very good over the last 8.5, 9 years to have the PNM in a bit of quandary as to a selection based on what's happening.
I think the PNM, and I would have mounted it on this program, recognize that you are in fact a good candidate. You have been in fact a good MP. You know what I mean? And you have been in fact spreading the resources amongst everybody in the area. Those are the things that I've heard, right? I've never heard anything bad about you. But let me ask you this. Is it that you have no friend there, in that little group of UNC people, who would tell you what's going on or advise you how to operate and so on?
I have a lot of friends, but let me tell you, I straddle with the reality of real life against what's happening in the political arena. So prior to the internal elections, the very same men who came out and wrote lovely letters against me, those who stood on the political platform and, poked fun and jabbed me, they are the very same ones who would come and descend and say, Parry, and I agree with you, but this lady had to go and all this kind of foolishness. They understand the challenges in the party. But yet,
and they are sitting
none of
MPs
them.
now?
No, put a pause. You just said, Mr. Parry, I agree with you, boy, that lady had to go. What does that mean?
That means they understand that she has outlived her usefulness in the leadership of the party and that she has to move on. Now understand this. I have never said from day one that anybody had to step down, pack a suitcase and jump on a plane. There is a constitutional way for the evolution of leadership in political parties. The election that was held 3 months ago is part of that evolutionary construct for a change of the leadership. Leadership is not only the political leader. And there is a political leader election that is due in 2025. Now, some may say that you can't have a leadership election the same year as a general election. Well, we proved that wrong in 2010 when there was a leadership election sometime in January. And in May of 2010, the People's Partnership under Mrs. Prasad Bisessa's leadership won 28 or 29 seats.
Yeah, but that was not a scheduled election. That was a snap election.
Agreed. But the point was I'm talking about the leadership election. The leadership of the UNC. That was a constitutionally due election, which happened within 6 months. So to say that we can't have an election next year with a general election that is due probably in August or September, October, November, sometime around there, it's really a weak argument. Whether it will happen or not, we left.
In the past, we've asked you directly your thoughts on Mrs. Prasad Bisessa's leadership, and you've said you were non-committal, and you were saying, well, the leadership means the leadership of the party.
Yeah.
A couple of minutes ago, you said, Parry, I agree with you, boy. That lady had to go, making a direct reference to Mrs. Prasad Bisessa and thinking that, well, she's outlived time as leader. If Mrs. Prasad Bisessa is hearing this, how do you think she's going to respond to that? You have made a direct statement saying that the sitting leader, who holds quite a bit of sway in the party, has outlived her usefulness as leader, and you are hoping that the party now continues to embrace you, embraces you into the next election. How do you think that is going to reconcile?
I can't say what she's thinking in her mind. If I were to judge what she's thinking from the last 3 months, she's already tossed me out. So, but the point that I want to make, just 1 second, right? There was a question earlier on that, the relationship with my colleagues. That conversation about this lady has to go, right? That's part of a wider conversation. And I am telling you, every single one of them, from Dr. Munila, I'll come right back. I will not engage in the exact conversations we would have had with all of them. But the consensus is that there is a feeling, and the country has that feeling, the wide, broad majority of UNC supporters have been saying, they say it on social media, they write letters to the editor every day, that if we go into a general elections with Mrs. Prasad Bisessa as the leader of the party, we stand a chance of losing much more seats than we go in with. Now, I mean, 1 man probably wrong, 10 men probably wrong, 100,000 people can't be wrong. And you can't judge the election results based on what is the gut feeling of the country, of the wider 350 or 375,000 UNC supporters that we feel that we have based on the last general elections. But I'm saying there is a way to test that through the constitutionally due arrangements of the party. And I reiterate it. This is not about Parry or Munilal or anybody. This is about asking the membership. And if we have a leadership election tomorrow and the election, however they frame it, however they do it, puts back Mrs. Prasad Bisessa, well, we go down to the election with Mrs. Prasad Bisessa. And we hope for the best.
Now, immediately before you and the PNM and the UNC and the independents is a 5th parliamentary term. The 4th session in the House of Representatives, there seemed to have been some uncertainty as to how yourself and the 4 other persons, excuse me, who have been described by some as dissidents, would vote for critical upcoming legislation. Is there any uncertainty? Because you have already stated that you've been left out of consultations of budget. You're not receiving responses to your correspondences. How do you think the next session will play out in terms of consensus from the opposition benches for you and your 4 colleagues, for whom some suggest there's a question mark where legislation is put to the floor?
Yeah.
Are you going to
toe the
vote
line?
conscience,
Toe the line.
or are you going to vote in line with the party?
So 2 things is going to happen today. I speak for myself. I can tell you after the internal election was over, there is no more United Patriots as an organization. I do not give instructions to anybody. Everybody is free to operate on their own. That is over and done with. So I can speak for me. Today, I go to Parliament warm, open, responsive, receptive, as I have always been. I speak to all of my colleagues in the last few sittings of Parliament before we went on the recess. I spoke to everybody. I meet you on the corridor. We engage in
So how will you know what the party's position is on a particular bill if you're not being communicated with?
Well,
just
you answer the
else voting and
question.
vote?
You've answered the question. No, but what I'm saying, the relationship will dictate how I operate. Because if I'm sitting under the hand of the whip will tell me if I'm under his hand today, because I will ask him. If I'm under the hand of the whip, well, then I expect all the courtesies, all the correspondence, all the information as every other member. If I am not getting that, well, then I am going to ask. If I'm not under the whip, well, then mean I will be forced and allowed to respond and act in my own deliberate way.
But is that a requirement, Mr. Parry, that the whip tells you, listen, you need to follow the dictates of the whip? Is that a requirement?
Absolutely. That is the Westminster system. If you are sitting, you notice there have been 2 or 3 occasions where the Prime Minister, or in this case the Leader of the Opposition, did say, I release the hand of the whip.
Mm-hmm.
And when you release the hand of the whip, every member can vote in their own deliberate judgment.
Yes.
Now, I will tell you, I will continue to debate whatever is in the best interest of Trinidad and Tobago first.
But who selects you?
Yeah,
who will select you then to participate in a debate? Wouldn't it be the whip?
So that is how it normally happens. And I'm glad you raised that question. So I want to put something out on the table now. The system by which I have operated in for the last 9 years is that a debate comes to the Parliament. There is a type of lawn tennis that plays. It depends on who speaks on the other side. Then you speak. So, for instance, in a budget debate, the substantive minister will speak, and then the substantive shadow will respond. So,
Right.
in a debate, I would normally deal with matters that Paula would normally bring, because she's the Minister of Trade and Industry. So, I would normally speak if she brings a bill. If in the budget debate, they would normally hold me back until Paula speaks, and then I respond to her. So, the rule is that the whip will come and tap you on your shoulder and say, look, prepare to speak after. So you wait, you hold the line, you take your notes, and you wait till your substantive line minister comes and you respond. However, during the campaign, the political leader stood up and said that the 5 of us, the 5 MPs, that we were lazy, we don't talk in Parliament, and that we can jump up at any time and speak. That's what she said. So one of my correspondents to the chief whip and the party was that, look, I wanted clarity on that, because there was a case made during the campaign that we don't like to talk, we just run and hide from Parliament. And as a matter of fact, you can go on the parliamentary website. In 8.5 years, I've spoken 70 times, 70. I've spoken on 70 bills, 23 motions, right? So I don't know if that is lazy, right? But I wanted clarity going forward from today. What is the rule?
But Mr. Parry, even if you don't get instructions from the whip, and you feel that you're in a space that you're unsure, the actual rule in the standing orders is the person who gets the eye of the chair.
The eye of the chair.
So you don't have to wait for any whip or any leader. And if you feel you have a contribution to make, and you feel to quote unquote jump up, you can.
Yes, agreed. I am totally agreed. But in the current construct, and it happens in the PNM as well, on the independent bench, you are beholden to nobody. So you could do what you want. But inside of the Westminster system that sits on
there's a convention. There's a convention.
It's a convention that you wait until you are told.
But if you never land.
Now, if I never land from today, and because as I say, I plan to ask that question to my chief. I have a wonderful working relationship with my chief. Now, if today my chief...
Who's that? Dr. Lee? Is that Dr. Lee?
Dr. Lee. Dr. Lee is our chief whip, yes. I have the greatest respect and admiration in the world for what he does inside the parliament.
Yeah, but he is going to do anything the leader tells him to do.
Well, I can't speak on his behalf. I can tell you what is my expectation of him. If he tells me, Mr. Parry, MP Parry, kindly hold until you are instructed to speak, okay, no problem. I will wait. But if time goes on and you are living up to what you say, I go jump up and talk because that's what the people on my arrow send me to do.
Well, I don't disagree with that at all.
Mr. Parry, there had been some advertisements in the newspaper and on social media identifying, is it Up TNT, Wendell?
Which one is that?
There's a logo seemingly of a new political party that people will either erroneously or not inaccurately linking yourself and your 4 colleagues to. Do you have anything to do with that new political entity, if it is a political entity?
I saw that like everybody else on social media. I queried, I tried to find out who is UPTT. I can tell you categorically that I have no part, no role, no conversation in that. As of today, I remain strongly a member of the United National Congress. I have no plans to leave or jump to anywhere. I do believe as a sitting member of the party internally that I have a right to shake any tree that I want inside of the party now going forward to drive the changes that I want. Coming out, like what some other people did, most recently would have had some, cross the floor and so on. Well, that's fine. I can't instruct anybody what to do or not to do. But I feel that you can be more effective sitting inside the ship than pelting bottle and stone from across the road. So I am strong. I still remain UNC. And until the day that the party feels that I am of no value to them, well, then so be it. But today, I have nothing to do with any other political
any overtures been made by any other political entity to your self?
All. From the PNM come right back. And I basically politely tell everybody no. Right? I have been speaking to every
What is the nature
party.
of these overtures from the PNM?
Boy, Rushton, you fed up with the UNC yet? Come by me. You have good ideas. And I said, no, my ideas will remain in the party that I joined over a little under 10 years ago because it's a philosophy that I agreed and I subscribed to. Right? I've now come out of a campaign where I promoted the conversation that a stronger UNC is a stronger Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, I'm not going to flip-flop like some people. 1 minute here, you're there, 1 minute here, tomorrow, you're all over the place. No. I remain strongly committed to the philosophy of the party that I joined 10 years ago. And let me make this clear. I have no problem with my party either. My party is the only vehicle that can take us to government and straighten out the mess that the PNM has left us in. I have a challenge with the leadership decision of my party.
I'm not going to ask that question because if you want your party to go into government to sort out the mess, as you say, that there is, how could you do that with the current leader that you clearly are not supportive of?
Well, the issue is not being supported. Is what do? You continue to gnaw away at these issues, which I am doing. And because there is no campaign for public consumption, I have been writing emails. I've been sending messages to various persons in the leadership of the party. Unfortunately, they're not responding to me. But I'm doing my part. I am doing my part to say, hey, we ought not to be doing this thing. Look, the color change of the party with the jerseys. I asked them, well, whose mandate was that? Did you get approval from the NATEX? Was approval given? Is anything in writing? Did you talk to the wider membership about this? You can have a unilateral decision by just going and frame up and change the color scheme of the party. Your brand is important. And don't tell me it is because there's a particular different type of consumption in certain areas of the country. No, the people of this country will support leadership and leadership ideas that are innovative. No matter what color you're in. So those are the kind of questions.
Mr. Parry, are you willing to take some calls from our audience?
Absolutely.
All right.
Mr. Parry, let me ask this one question before
I guess this Rushton Parry.
As we open the lines. Because you on the ground, you're in the Mayo area, you understand the politics, you know that you've gone against the party and the leadership and that they'll probably be looking for someone. Have you been able, have that person been identified as yet?
No, I have had, I cannot tell you today that there has been any search for anyone. I do know in the last screening, application for screening, there were 1 or 2 persons who have filed for Mayaro. But outside of that,
yourself?
including myself, which is normal. There have been 1 or 2, up to 3 persons would have screened there were 5 persons screened in 2015. There were 3 persons screened in 2020. And I understand there are about 2 or 3 persons together with myself that is going to be screened. Whether the party has a vigorous campaign to look for a candidate, I have seen no evidence of that so far.
So no names whispering out there as to who they putting in place of Russia?
Outside of the traditional names that would have filed, I have heard no new names to say, well, another business person or another senior professional person in the community who has not been in the political landscape. I have had no information on that. I have heard nothing about that.
Honest answer. What do you think? What do you think are the chances of the UNC if Russian Parry is not the candidate?
I have a strong feeling that if Rushton Parry is not the candidate in 2025, there will be a bit of fallout. Whether the UNC can lose the seat, I think there's a high possibility that they can. There's a feeling inside the party that Mayaro is a safe seat. I can tell you that in 8.5 years, I've moved Mayaro from a marginal seat to a safe seat. So whether they feel that any candidate that they put, as good or bad as they may be, that they can win, that is what I believe is the thinking inside of the party. I can tell you from outside, I have indicated my intention to my election machinery that works for me, that I am prepared to contest the election in 2025, and I have full support from the vast majority of the election machinery here in Mayaro.
All right, we do have a call. Good morning.
Hello, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Hello.
Good morning to the guest of the Parliament.
Morning.
That's so interesting to me. You said the Constitution in the UNC was how you can go about in terms of Dr. Pollack's question of support from the police who are talking. So how can you go about such a constitution? If you look at it, leader endorsement to the executive publicly, she publicly endorsed the NATEC executive that is in power right now. So I want you to constitution give you or what this area in terms of constitution gives you after the leadership of the UNC.
He's breaking up badly though.
Yeah.
I didn't catch the question at all.
So the question is, what caller? We're breaking up.
The question is, where in the Constitution in the US Mr. the powers to challenge the leadership?
Okay, so if I get it, where is the in the Constitution has the power to challenge the leadership? The Constitution provides for a NATEX election every 2 years and a leadership election, a political leader election every 3 years. The 3-year anniversary for the leader, the political leader election, is due in early March, April next year. And that's how the Constitution is, to answer the question. I'm not sure if it's something else you're trying to get at, but that is how the Constitution is laid out. 2 years for NATEX, 3 years. And there's a reason why the framers of the Constitution put a 1-year separation, because they don't want a NATEX that is at the beck and call of a political leader. They wanted to create a line somewhere where you can have a check and balance between the dictates of a political leader and the leadership of the party. And that was the reason for that. So there is a 1-year difference, constitutionally.
There's a question here in the chat, Mr. Parry. Will you go up as an independent candidate if you're not selected by the UNC?
It is not my intention at this time. I remain very, very committed to the UNC. I do believe I am still the best chance. I remain optimistic that whatever is the relationship, at the end of the day, I think, we are a young political party. I think these are teething problems. We have to learn to be mature about things. And, in business sometimes as a businessman, sometimes the relationship you have with someone, an engineering staff, a technical person, may not be the best, but they bring the best value to the business. And sometimes we have to swallow our pride sometimes in terms of the relationship you may have with that person. And you allow them to do the work that they've been trained for to make your business effective and profitable.
Earlier on, you said you think the UNC is the best vehicle to move the country forward.
Yes.
If you are not selected, will you show your support behind whomever is selected by the NATEC?
I will do whatever it takes to ensure that the UNC has the best possible chance to win the general election in 2025.
Okay, interesting. Do we have any more calls, Steve?
No, I kind of reset, so it'll take about a minute again.
Parry, thank you for being with us this morning and making yourself available as usual. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here.
There is a connection between government policy and law in the sense that all laws start as some type of government policy. So, for example, in Trinidad and Tobago, we would have had the recent national policy on persons with disabilities. And that policy talks in very strong terms about the need to both enact laws to provide for the human rights of persons with disabilities. It also talks about the need to amend laws that we have on our statute books right now that discriminate against persons with disabilities. So once that policy is adopted and approved by the cabinet, then the process of making it a law can begin. The difficulty with the policy remaining as a policy, two things. One, it's not enforceable. So it does not really give you any rights legally because it's just a policy, it's not a law. And the other thing is that policies can change over time. Policies can change over time as the needs of the government or the focus of the government itself changes. It can change if the government itself changes. So that it's not enough for us to say, well, we have a policy. We have to take that further step to make the policy a law, because that is what will give full protection for the human rights of persons with disabilities.
Anyway, let's say good morning to our guest. Good morning, Dr. Farrell. Thank you for joining us. Could that come in? Thank you for joining us.
Very welcome, Paul. Good to be here.
Thank you, Dr. Farrell, for joining us. Of course, Paul and
you understand my questions, right, Dr. Farrell? You've been around long enough.
I've been around a long time.
That's right. Those are coming. They can be considered no less legitimate. Yes, PAN is a national instrument, but they are critical, important artistic expressions in Trinidad and Tobago. And they are not to feel slighted where we headquarters. Anyway, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about constitutional reform. And you are part of the committee,
yes,
appointed by the Honorable Prime Minister to galvanize public opinion on the issues related to constitutional reform. The committee has submitted its first report, if I'm not mistaken, to the Prime Minister. Would that be correct?
That's correct. First and last. We don't have any report to go.
Oh, you have no more. I thought, for some reason, I heard news that some extension had been given, but so your work is done.
Yeah, the extension is given in order to prepare for the conference to come.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a conference coming up to discuss the issues contained there.
Correct.
Okay. Now, I attended one, the one in City Hall.
Yes.
And it was quite interesting. I don't think the committee, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. But let me ask a question. How do you think the response had been to the call for the public to come out and give their opinion? Let me start with that question.
But quite frankly, I think it was excellent. And let me try to explain why. We received over 800 submissions by email. And one of the things that I try to point out to people is that if you go back to the Wooding Commission in 1972-74, the Wooding Commission received 100 submissions, including one from myself. And so even at that time, the population was about 750,000. So even if you allow for that, we did a lot better. The second issue that is that I think people seem to think that if you want to get the views of people on a subject, and for example, you've just done your poll where you had 43 respondents, that you need to talk to thousands of people. That is simply not so. For a population like Trinidad and Tobago, an electorate of about 1.1 million people, you just need to talk to several hundred people in order to get a sense as to what people are thinking and so on. Just to illustrate, in the United States, when they are polling for elections, like now the presidential election and so on, the electorate in the United States is 260 million people. When the best pollsters go outside there, they usually sample between 2,000 and 8,000 people in the United States with an electorate of 260 million people.
That's less than 1%.
Exactly. And so if you have any sort of basic familiarity with statistics, then, I saw some people talk about the fact that we had a paltry response and so on. That is simply not correct. And I think it kind of betrays a lack of knowledge of or understanding of statistics. We think our response was excellent. And I think that we took advantage of the fact that people sent in stuff by email. And that varied from one-liners to people who submitted extensive and long essays, really, on various aspects of constitutional reform. In addition to that, we had the town hall meetings. Some of them were poorly attended, that is true, but overall we had over 300 people attending the town hall meetings. And we had 3 youth forums, one in Tobago and 2 in Trinidad, which was also well attended by young people. And that's an opportunity for people to talk, as you did when you came to the City Hall. People can talk and they can explain and they can elaborate on their views. So we think that the response was excellent. And moreover, when you look at what the responses we got, they are very consistent with what the Ramadan Committee got in 2013. And even if you go back to the Wooding Commission, it's very consistent with what people were saying even 50 years ago. So we are very, very comfortable with with the responses that we got.
It's not quantity, it's quality.
Both quantity and quality of the responses that we got, yes.
Yeah. And I know there are lots of people who may have contributed when the People's Partnership was doing their constitutional exercise. And then you have this other one, and there's a portion of Trinidad and Tobagonians that'll be a little jaded about it.
Yes.
Because they'll feel I am putting forward effort that will amount to naught.
Correct.
Because the current construct requires the participation of the opposition or a party having the overwhelming majority to achieve that constitutional reform. But when you go through an exercise, Dr. Farrell, like that constitution exercise, and you present this document, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but at a PNM rally, they dismissed certain things like 2 terms that they fixed. So they've already started dismissing consultations with citizens. Why does that engender any faith in the citizenry that their voices are truly heard if it narrowly comes down to the decisions of a few people, whether constitution moves forward, and oftentimes one person?
Okay, so let me try to respond to that, Richard, in a number of different ways. First of all, there are currently 5 constitutional reform exercises taking place across the region. In Belize, in Jamaica, in Barbados, in Trinidad and Tobago, and Guyana has just started one, although the Guyanese constitution is the most recent Caribbean constitution. 5 at the same time. And I think what it is telling us is that there is a demand, if you like, for change of our constitutional arrangements, which were bequeathed to us by the British. And there's now a demand to change those arrangements because those arrangements are clearly not working well for us. The second point I would make is that when you look at constitutional reform efforts across the globe, across the world, most of them actually fail. And the reason for that is not very hard to discern. The reason for that is that almost by definition, a constitutional reform exercise, if it is done properly and if it is done with integrity, is going to make recommendations for changing the balance of power in the society, in the government, the balance of power between the parliament and the executive and the judiciary and the independent institutions. And those are very much evident in the recommendations that we have made. Now, for those people who currently hold power, it is not in their interest to change that, particularly if there are recommendations which diminish or constrain or restrict their power. And this is why, in most instances, constitutional reform exercises tend to run aground. And in Chile, for example, they've had they spent 2 years in an elaborate exercise that has just stopped. So the pathway to success is narrow. In respect of Trinidad, you're quite right. Constitutional change requires a special majority, especially for those provisions in the Constitution which are entrenched. And any meaningful reform is, in fact, going to attach to those entrenched provisions. So therefore, you are going to need a special majority. Our process, our procedure, and our faith is that Parliament has been put there by the people of Trinidad and Tobago. They are not our masters. We are their masters. And therefore, if you have a process where the people of Trinidad and Tobago are saying to the parliamentarians who we have put there that this is what we want, then I think they ought to respect that. They may not, but they ought to respect that. The other point, the last point, is that in respect of the PNM's recent convention, we have put forward a report and recommendations. That report and recommendations are for everyone to examine, everyone to critique, everyone to put forward their views. So we are expecting, in fact, and we are welcoming every political party, every NGO, every business organization, every trade union to look at our report, look at our recommendations, and to come up with their own if they don't agree with what we have said. The only thing that I am saying that they should do when they are doing that is that number one, their responses or their recommendations ought to be based on principle. There must be a basis for what you are saying. Secondly, that it must be reasoned. There must be a rationale for your recommendation. And it must be offered in the spirit of trying to move the process forward. So we have absolutely no difficulty if people disagree with what we have said. Not at all. In fact, it would be quite odd if people didn't, because you are in fact working on creating and change, and people may not like change. So a prime minister will obviously want to keep the election date in his back pocket. But the point is that the prime minister keeping the election date in his back pocket is a fundamentally undemocratic exercise. It's an undemocratic process. It's arbitrary. And so therefore it is inconsistent with the principle of a sovereign democratic state. It's simply not, well, quite frankly, normatively, right, one can argue it's simply wrong to do that. Now, to do that, but the question